Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Three in the Keystone, episode 38, the Kurt
Schilling.
Schilling episode.
Cecil Martin. Big Cecil, I see you, brother. I ain't forget.
Coming from our fresh fullback. I got Al Ryan and Chris Guest. I'm Adam Seltzer. Another beautiful spring day out there today. And the good news is for you Philadelphia citizens, you can continue to drink the water without any worries. Did you guys see the I was laughing last night when I saw they're like the water's good until 12 o'clock. And it's like, well, what happens at 12 o'clock to the water at that point?
Yeah, they kept pushing it back, and now they said it's fine. And I just posted on Instagram or something from our account, like Dasani, Aquafina, and Nestle, thank you for your service, City of Philadelphia, because they definitely sold out of all the bottled water in the last 4 days.
Yeah, apparently there was a big fight at the Walmart in Cherry Hill or somewhere the other day on Sunday, of all days, over some water bottles. I've actually been, and I have a water softening and cleaning system in the house. We put it a few years ago, and I also have one of those purifiers in the kitchen sink for spigot water, and I still been on bottled water for like the last 3 years. Ever since COVID started, I'm like, I don't care. I'm just doing a lot of bottled water still. My wife thinks I'm stupid, but I'm paranoid. So
I'm primarily water bottle.
Yeah.
What? You guys are nuts, man.
I don't trust nobody, bro.
We had the fridge water, like the filter on the fridge or whatever, and then one day it just stopped working out of nowhere. And Casey got a plumber over here, and the plumber claimed that there was no line to the fridge. And we're like, bro, like we've been drinking water from this for 3 years. What are you talking about? There's no line. He's like, there's no line. I wasn't here. I hate that. I hate when like people come over and I'm not here.
Me too.
You know what I mean? So anyway, long story short, we got a Brita. I don't do the sink water anymore.
Yeah, now the Brita is a good item, or the Pure, the PUR, the Pure.
Yeah,
that's a good item too.
You know what I did tonight? Do you guys do? And I think I jumped the gun a little bit on it, but the spring closet wardrobe change. You know, when you move all the spring clothes into the primary positions?
Yes. I used to do that. I just kind of stopped. I got too much clothes. I can't do it. It'd be a whole day worth of moving and shaking.
But that's the point. You got to put the clothes that you're going to need now for the next 6 months into the positions where you are the most.
Oh no, don't get me wrong. You're 100% right. I just don't ever feel like doing it. And then by the time I want to do it, it's like July, and it's already like halfway through the season already.
It's a great day doing it for the spring wardrobe.
Yeah,
it's nice when it's done. It's not fun doing it, but when it's done and your stuff is in the right spots, it's a good feeling.
I don't mind it because I combine it with the purge too. I get rid of all the stuff that I'm not going to wear anymore, put it in the bag, go drop it off at Green Dot.
It does suck though. Like I found some really nice like winter sweaters that I'm like, man, I wish I would have known this was in here. Like I would have worn it a few times.
Seltzer, by the way, I don't know about now how it is where you're at, but I know Seltzer, this area where we are is notorious for hard water. If you can get a hard water softening system, it is worth it. Your showers feel like you're a seal when you're done. It's amazing.
How do you know what seals feel like?
Well, like the sleek kind of soft feel.
Nice coat.
Yeah.
Wait, now is that soft or like? Because I've taken showers down Sea Isle. It was infamous. You feel slimy afterwards. It's not
with
slimy.
The hard water or the salt or the.
Well, that's that
hard water
Jersey
is the worst,
water.
dude. It feels like
the fluoride
like with pebbles. like you feel like I get all ashy afterwards and everything. I had to stop it. I had to ante up and get the softening system. Because you know what, it's also bad for your pipes because the calcium in the water it thickens within the pipes, and then you can have pipe bursts and stuff too faster.
Yeah,
you learn a lot on this show, man.
Tricks of the trade for keeping your house safe.
Yeah, so that's our episode 38, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good night. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Cecil B. But let's get into tonight's episode. We've been teasing it for weeks. We are days away. Actually, before we even get into it, Al, I want to talk about our Instagram, our nickname bracket, which was finally, we teased that for weeks as well. That finally went up last night. So feel free to put your votes in. Last night, we revealed the baseball bracket and the football bracket. And in the near future, we will put the basketball as well as the miscellaneous sports. So you can find that on Instagram and Twitter. So Twitter is at 3K Podcast. And the Instagram, Al?
is at 3K _ podcast. Somebody has 3K podcast.
Can't blame them.
We'll have to have a sit down.
Yeah.
There's only room for one of us.
So make sure you're following us, vote, and we'll have the best nickname in sports, and more on that to come later tonight.
And what's interesting, and just a little bit of a tease here, is the results are a little different depending on which platform you look at. It makes sense. It makes sense because it reflects Instagram being more of our friends and Twitter being more of just the Twitterverse.
True. Well, let's get into segment one. I said we've been teasing it for weeks. We are 2 days away from Phillies opening day. The defending NL champs will be in action in a big rivalry against the Texas Rangers to open up the season.
Quite a randomest team we could have played.
Yeah, I mean, almost as random as last year when we played Oakland.
Yeah, that was bad too. But that was because of the strike, though.
Right.
We're supposed to play Houston.
You're right.
Yeah.
But we will see a familiar face as we will be facing off with Jacob deGrom, the former New York Met, on opening day. So the more you try and get away from him, the faster he comes back.
Yep.
I want to break down the Phillies into 3 segments, and we'll talk about each. We'll talk about hitting, we'll talk about pitching, we'll talk about the relievers. But I think it's best that we lead with the big news that came last week as Rhys Hoskins tears his ACL. The Phillies lose the first baseman for the season and probably his Phillies career, maybe, as he's a free agent at the end of the year. So we'll see what this injury does to his value. But let's talk about the impact that injury has and whether or not you'll think it'll make a big difference. Chris, I know you differed in your opinion compared to Al and I, so why don't you take the ball to start?
I mean, I'll keep it short. I think if you are a regular listener, you probably know how I feel about Rhys Hoskins. I don't ever wish injury on anybody, obviously. With that being said, I don't know. He doesn't move the needle for me, so to speak. I feel like if anybody was going, if somebody came and said, okay, you're going to lose one of your cogs of your team for the season, you pick who it's going to be. That's who I would. I mean, that's the least worrisome person I would pick in terms of the worry I'd have for the team going forward without them.
Define cog, like just a starter.
Well, as far as a starter that's a regular player in the lineup mostly every game. You know, when you talk about the core guys, so to speak, him, Howard, Harper, you know, all the Schwarber, JT, all those guys. I feel like he'd be the most, and I hate to say this word, but I think he'd be the most expendable out of that group. Not only offensively, but also defensively. Obviously, we know he can't play a lick at first base. He's probably more going to end up being a DH in his career going forward, especially if he's not on the Phillies anymore after this year. With him being he's a free agent after the season, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I could see him being a DH. Not that we don't have DHs in the National League now, but I just feel like he's more of an American League bat.
But I mean, that's changed now that the DH is in the
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I see the argument too, but I just out of the guys we have right now, I feel like he'd be the one that I'd be least worried about losing. So I'm not that worried about losing.
I'm more worried about the depth. I think that the infield depth takes a pretty big hit as far as the bats go without him in the lineup, because now you're going to be piecemealing stuff together. I don't think Derek Hall is an everyday starter at first base. And then now I think we're going to have to be relying a little bit more on Edmundo Sosa coming in. You're going to have to shift people back and forth. I know they talked about Alec Boehm potentially moving to first for some games here and there, or for the long haul at some point in his career. He's not ready for that yet. And I think he's just settling into third base now. So I think that would be a mistake to make such a drastic move for Alec Boehm, where he just seems to be kind of getting comfortable at the big league level. So I just think I'm more concerned with the depth. I don't know if like a Garrett Stubbs could potentially fill in, spot start at first base.
I think if you're talking about that, I think you're talking more of like JT has played first base in his career.
Well, Schwarber's played first base before.
Oh, so see what I mean here? Like now all of a sudden we're juggling 4 or 5 different names to try and cover first base. I mean, this is something that potentially is going to affect us over the course of all 162 games of this season. So I would imagine that Dombrowski, as soon as he saw that, those results, he was already kind of plotting and thinking about who he could potentially either sign or trade for at some point in the season if we're going to be making a run. So we'll see. I did hear some encouraging news though about Harper, right? He's on track to potentially be back a little earlier than they thought.
Yeah, they did not put him on the 60-day DL, so there was some hope there that he would come back sooner rather than later. There is one point that I would like to bring up that neither of you mentioned, which to me is the biggest issue with losing Hoskins, is this lineup is left-handed heavy, and there's a handful of left-handed hitters in this order that can't hit left-handed pitching. So now all of a sudden you're having to throw another left-handed hitter and Derek Hall into the lineup, and now all of a sudden I'm looking at Schwarber, Hall, Cave is probably going to be your DH now, Stott and Marsh. You got 5 lefties in there.
Yeah.
Hoskins was at least that guy that if you saw a left-handed pitcher, he could hit left-handed pitching. And at the end of the day, if you look through the Phillies lineup, with the exception of there's a couple guys. For all of Hoskins' warts, you knew what you were getting from him, and it was 245 to 250. He was going to hit 28 homers.
All in July in 1 week.
Yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
But it's still production that they have to find and they have to match, and they got to be able to do it from the right side, because I mentioned all those left-handed hitters, and that's even before Harper comes back.
Yeah.
So
you're right.
They're in need of a right-handed bat, and it puts even more pressure on guest boy Nicky Bats to be that guy.
Oh, hey, Well, here's what I'm saying, or what I'm thinking. First of all, Al, I don't know how you already don't. How do any of us know right now that Derek Hall is not an everyday first baseman? We haven't seen him in a season, but it's not. I don't think it's fair to already say like.
I didn't say he wasn't. I just said it's we're asking a lot now all of a sudden with him having to play every day. Is he that guy? Is what I'm saying. We don't know. You're right.
If he can give us, and he's got a huge pop in his bat. However, we don't know how he's going to be over the stretch of an entire season. We don't know how he's going to be over the stretch of an entire season against lefties, his play in the field, etc. But if he can hit, and this is a low end, I think, for him, because he's got a lot of pop. If he can hit 20 home runs, and Castellanos can hit 10 more home runs, that's 30 home runs there. That would replace Hoskins, at least home run value. Obviously, with home runs inherently comes RBIs. So depending on who's on base on those home runs or those at bats. But I think if you can get that to happen, that goes a long way. And also, I'll say this, I mentioned it before. I don't know if it's a hot take or not. I think Harper's going to be back before Memorial Day. I got a feeling he's going to be back really soon. If you look at the timeline that Ohtani had, when he had his Tommy John situation, and he was a pitcher, so it was a little bit different. But he came back to DH. Even if he comes back before Memorial Day to DH and can't play the field till the All-Star break, hey, we'll take that.
Yeah.
That also boosts production.
As long as he's healthy, the sooner the better, without question.
The guy that I'm more concerned about injury-wise is Ranger Suarez.
Oh, man, you took the words out of my mouth. I was going to ask you that.
That's who I'm more concerned about. If you ask me who am I concerned more about, him or Hoskins, I'm way more concerned about Suarez in terms of the importance of him in this team. We had him already banked as a number 3 guy. He's shown flashes of being an excellent number 3, possibly even a number 2 on certain rosters. And then now we're going to have Taijuan Walker, who is a solid pitcher, good pitcher, but you're talking about, again, with depth. That hurts your pitching, your starting pitching depth. Mm-hmm. And depth there is way more important to replace than it is a first baseman.
So losing Suarez would be a lot larger loss than losing Hoskins. I'm just not as concerned about the injury to Suarez. From everything we've heard, it's forearm tendonitis. There's nothing structurally wrong. It's generally something that can happen early in the season. I would be shocked if Suarez wasn't pitching by the end of April. He may not be fully stretched out at that point, but I'm not overly concerned long-term about losing Suarez. And I honestly think a few less innings on the arm over the course of the season may not be the worst thing in the world, but they don't have much depth behind them. That's for sure. Especially
and that was my
losing Painter.
Right. And that was my fear with Ranger, is not that he won't play, but when he comes back, he's already going to be behind. He hasn't really had a spring training at this point. So even if he comes back in April at the end of the month or whenever it is, he's got to get stretched out. So he's going to probably have some rehab assignments. He probably won't be 100% or himself till probably Memorial Day at that point in time with that timeline. And I think that's with like good news, in terms of the timeline of how it works for these pitchers in baseball these days.
Yeah, so it
You-
seems like right now they're going to go with Matt Stram at the 5. They're starting to stretch him out, so he'll be pitching the free agent signing. He was actually brought over as a relief pitcher, but he'll be
Right.
starting a few games at least early in the season to go along with Nola and Wheeler. Any concerns about the top two? My main question is Wheeler did not have a great spring, has expressed his vehement dislike for the pitch clock. Aaron Nola obviously was not able to reach a contract extension with the Phillies. He'll be a free agent at the end of the year. By all signs, it seemed to be an amicable split, and they seemed optimistic to be able to sign him in the offseason. But it seems as though they were pretty far off. Somebody was saying that Nola may have been asking for $40 million a year, which is crazy to me. But any concern about the top two in the rotation?
No, if he wants to get paid, he's going to perform this year. Then, I mean, that just is more incentive for him to have another great season. I'm more concerned slightly with Wheeler, only because he's shown that he has trouble lasting, potentially for a full season and a postseason run. And I don't like the little, the little complaints he's had about the pitch clock, but he's at the end of the day, he's a professional. He's been there, done that. I have full faith in him and Nolan. I still think that there's still one of the best 1-2 punches in all of baseball. I'm more concerned with the hit that the depth takes from this injury.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too, I'm surprised by Wheeler by what he said, because I never thought of him as a grind out pitcher that is always on the mound and taking his time. And he always seemed to be a guy that kind of got it right back to JT pretty quickly. Maybe I haven't paid attention well enough to, maybe there's something I missed there, but I'm surprised that he voiced his displeasure with it so vehemently. But for Nola, if they have an issue giving, I don't know what the market is, but if they have an issue, if that is true, and he's asking for $40 million a year,
Insane.
that if that's the market price for him and they're uncomfortable paying it now, how are they going to feel when he has a Cy Young type season this year, if that's what he does? Because then the price goes up. As we all know, wise man once said, yesterday's price is not today's price. So you run the risk of always having to pay more money if you wait and don't get it done. I think that's for baseball with the pitchers, quarterbacks in the NFL, all that kind of stuff. If you want to extend somebody, it's always, in my opinion, best to do it as early as possible before the market changes, before the player changes, all that kind of stuff.
How many pitchers do you think in Major League Baseball make $40 million a year?
It doesn't matter. I don't, because
Sure it does.
if the market for whatever reason this year dictates that it's going to be 40 million for a guy his caliber, then that's what it is.
Yeah, but I'm saying the market is dictated by how many pitchers. How many pitchers do you think?
I would venture to guess at least 40 million. That's there's so many pitchers. I would say like 4.
2. Max Scherzer, who only got 3 years.
DeGrom?
And what?
DeGrom or
No, DeGrom got 30. DeGrom's at 37. Justin Verlander got 2. Justin Verlander got 2 years at $43 million.
Yeah.
But that also has to do with the fact that they're shorter contracts.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. But so Ohtani is he's obviously going to get that if you count him as a pitcher versus a DH or whatever you want, or outfield or whatever you want to put him at. But
So Carlos Rodon got 6 years at $27 million this offseason. What makes Nola worth $40 million if Rodon's 27?
and Nola will be how old?
Well,
After this
Rodon
year?
just turned 30, so Nola is, give me a second.
I'll say 29, maybe.
28, 29 years old.
Nola is 29 years old, so he'll be same age, hitting free agency. And now Nola's shown, let's say Nola has a Nola year, not Cy Young, but he has the same Nola year that he always has. Good pitcher. I just don't.
The last 2 years he's been Cy Young caliber.
Last year he was, but didn't the year before that he stink? Or was it 2 years before that?
No, 2 years ago he kind of flamed out at the end, but
2021 he had a 4.6 ERA.
yeah. So and then was it 20? Which one? I remember like 2 years where he was like lights out. Last year and then
2018 he was 2.37.
Okay.
And then
so he's capable of doing that.
He's 3.87, 3.28, 3.25. To me, he's like, I don't see him as a. Maybe it's because I'm just not a Nola guy. I don't see him as a 1. I see him as a 2.
No,
None of his stuff when he's on the mound ever blows you away.
I disagree. I think when he's locked in, his stuff is elite. But he just he goes through these stretches where he's very, very hittable.
I
And
think he has. I think all his stuff is all very good, but he doesn't have that. I don't think he has that one like over the top, like the Hamels changeup. Like he doesn't have that one pitch that's like what's he rely on?
I don't know. He's got that involved.
Whatever it is, it works for him. I mean, he
Yeah,
had how many? He had what 200? How many strikes did he have last year? Two something.
Aaron Nola struck
I
out
mean, he had a
200,
really
235 hitters and 205 innings. So he had a great strikeout rate. He obviously had a really good walk rate. We talked strikeout to walk ratio. He only walked 29 hitters last year. He had a great year.
yeah. If he does that again, he's going to get 40 million. I think. No, the thing with Nola that I don't like is he always tends to, because he's from New Orleans, he struggles in the beginning of the year, and at the end of the year, normally last year he was good at the end of the year for the
No, he
most part.
wasn't.
But,
He
well, and when we
last-
needed him, he was the
he
World
had a
Series.
couple good. He had a couple good postseason starts. He threw a
I
really
was
good
gonna say
Cardinals.
he locked out the Astros. He shut up the Astros
Yep.
that clinching game
That was the best
for
game I've
the
ever saw.
playoff spot. But
The Padres
Yeah.
first Padres game, he didn't pitch well when they
No.
lost. And then he did 2 games in the World Series. He didn't throw well.
Yeah.
right. So he has an issue with playing, and he said this before publicly. He's not as strong when it's cooler temperatures. I don't know if it's because of where he's from, and he just loves the heat. He doesn't pitch well in the beginning and end of seasons. So
Let him
that
sign with the Marlins then.
well, no, I mean, I'd rather have him here. You sound like you don't want to have Aaron Nola. Are you saying you think you can do better than Aaron Nola?
No, but
Well, how much is
mean-
this? How much is this potentially because of what we have in the AAA coming up and
Right.
with Painter
That's
and
true.
Abel and McGarry?
That's true, but dude, you got a bona fide guy right now. Like you have, imagine if you had those guys plus Nola plus Wheeler. Like imagine Painter or Mick Abel being your number 5.
and here's the other thing. Wheeler comes up, I think, at the end of next year. So I don't think they're going to buck up for Wheeler.
They're going to keep one of them at least.
Right. I would think so too. So that's where you got to make your decision on which one it's going to be.
Nola's a homegrown guy.
Wheeler's older. Wheeler's, I think, 33 or 34.
That's what I'm saying. Nola, it seems to me that they would keep Nola for different reasons more so than Wheeler. If it came down to one or the other, they might want to keep both of them. I don't know.
And here's
But
the
if it
thing:
came-
baseball, there's no salary cap, so I don't care if you sign him or not.
That's
It's not
what I'm
like
saying.
not like basketball where it's like we're saving cap or anything like that. If
And the
Middleton
beauty
wants to
is-
spend his money, have at it.
I was gonna say the beauty is it ain't our money. So
Exactly.
good luck to you. You know.
I was just going to say that we don't know though what potentially those conversations are being had behind closed doors, where Middleton might be saying something like, "Look, we just gave this guy money, that guy money. We
Right.
the well's going to run dry at some point."
And also, I don't care what they say about, well, it's an amicable split for it. Anytime you can't come to an agreement in a period of time where you intend to come to an agreement, it's a red flag.
Yep.
There's something that was a hang up that is always potential to rear its ugly head again. And there's always a potential for an impasse. So I always get nervous when you have that situation play. Look at the Ravens. Ravens are same situation with Lamar. They want to get it done all these years, still haven't gotten it done. Now the guy wants out, the whole thing. So anytime that happens, I get a little bit nervous.
Yeah, but what happens though? The player screws himself because look what's happening with Lamar. What's going on with Lamar? He's got like shady agents contacting all these teams, and nobody wants to pick him up. The guy's an all-pro quarterback. Nobody wants. So if Aaron Nola is going to have sour grapes and he's going to let that affect his performance on the mound this season, well, then Aaron Nola is not going to get $40 million a year.
Well, the other question too is in terms of those comparisons, Lamar Jackson currently doesn't have an official agent. Aaron Nola is represented, I believe, by Scott Boras.
Right.
I believe. I could be wrong on that.
I think you're
But-
correct on that.
If he is, that even more so makes me feel like he's going to get that 40 million. Boras tends to win more than not.
I mean, the other thing that's scary is like if you invest money in these pitchers and they don't necessarily last long. Like I'm looking at some of the highest total contracts or even average value, and in the top 10, David Price, 31 million, not pitching anymore. Steven
And that was
Strasburg,
he had a long-term deal at one point, right? That's where it's coming from.
7 years, 217 million.
Yeah.
Steven Strasburg, 7 years, 245 million, not
Okay.
pitching anymore.
Yeah.
Chris Sale, 5 years, 145 million, finally back this year. But these pitchers, you could have an arm injury and miss 2 seasons.
Yeah.
No doubt. It's a risk. I mean, I'm not saying it's not, but I'd rather still have him and take that risk. He's only 29. Wheeler, we could have a conversation after this year and see like, well, he's older and this and that. But Nola's younger. He's homegrown. He is an all-star. He has a Cy Young candidate. I am very comfortable with keeping him and
There's
paying
no question. There's no question that we're better with him, and
Right.
whether or not you'd want him. Who do you want at the end of the year if you have to pick one? Is it him or Wheeler?
I personally, I personally feel more comfortable in a Game 7 situation with Wheeler pitching.
Agreed.
Ironically enough,
Agreed.
but-
Again, moving forward, it might be Nola because of the age factor and the innings. But if you're asking me this year who I trust to win a game, I'd rather see Zach Wheeler on a mound.
yeah, I would agree with that.
And look, at the end of the day, we talked last year. The reason this team was dangerous in the playoffs was because of those two guys. As good as the lineup was and is, it was Nola and Wheeler at the top of the rotation that made this team special. So they need those guys to duplicate what they did last year, I think, in order to continue this trend. Because the question's going to be, everybody's ballsing for the Phillies and excited for the Phillies. Let's remember, the Phillies were the last team to get into playoffs last year. They got hot at the right time.
Right.
They have to prove it this year whether or not they are a perennial contender in the National League or they just are a team that got hot at the right time.
And not even in the National League, in the NL East.
Right?
Yeah.
But that division is still stacked.
And
So
we're going to find out a lot about Nola too this year because of that contract situation. The longer that lingers, because we can see like his mental fortitude. Is he going to be distracted by that? We talked about the spring training situation with him and Wheeler, whatever. Is part of the issue with Nola that's weighing on him, and it will continue to weigh on him throughout the year. I don't know. I hope not, but again, that's why you don't let this happen where you wait and extend this over and over until instead of just nipping in the bud and having the conversations that you need to have and figuring it out.
I trust him though. He's never shown any signs of being that kind of guy.
Oh no, I know. I'm just saying that you got to be. Well, hopefully that's going to stick and be accurate and not rear its ugly head at some point where we find out that it did or it is distracting it.
Yeah. So Al, you mentioned the NL East. I was looking at the Vegas numbers today. How many teams in the National League are projected to have more wins than the Phillies, would you say?
Well, most people have the Braves and the Mets ahead of us, so that's at least two. The Cardinals probably up there. The Dodgers are definitely above us, and maybe even the Padres. So I'll say 4 of the 5.
Chris?
Yeah, I would probably say the same.
So you guys you hit the nail on the head. Those 4 teams are all ahead of the Phillies, and actually significantly ahead of the Phillies in regards to Vegas win totals. And the Cardinals are the same as the Phillies.
Al, you want to say it or do you want me to say it?
Hold on. I'll go through the numbers and I'll let you say it. Phillies are at 88.5 wins is the Vegas total for the Phillies. Like I said, the Cardinals are also 88.5. Braves are 95.5. Dodgers 96.5. Mets 93.5. Padres 93.5. And then the Brewers at 86.5, 2 wins behind the Phillies.
The Dodgers, so they lost Trey, right? And then I feel like, didn't they lose somebody else?
I'm not as big on the Dodgers either. They lost.
I don't understand where that's.
Justin Turner's gone. Cody
That's what it
Bellinger's
was.
gone.
Right.
They lost. Cody Bellinger sucked the last few years anyway.
No, he wasn't good. No.
Gavin Lux got hurt in the beginning of the preseason, so he's out for the year. Walker Buehler is still out. He had Tommy John at the middle of last year.
Yeah, I don't get where they're coming up with that figure for them.
I mean, it's got to be listen, the Dodgers have been great for a decade, and they won 118 games last year. So they're projecting or 114 last year. They're projecting like an 18-win decrease, which is significant. But I'm seeing the same thing here, Chris. I look at the roster, and they still have some good players. Let's not get it wrong. They still have Mookie Betts. They still have Freddie Freeman. They still have Kershaw.
Will Smith, Max Muncy.
Urias. They're still going to be very good. But
no doubt. But I'm saying like 96. I mean, that's a lot.
I think the Padres are better.
Well, here's my thing.
I think so too, but they got those fans making those dumbass songs, so they probably
yeah.
Dude, I think the Padres are really, really good.
Well, they won't watch baseball until October anyway.
Well, neither did the Phillies fans last year, so let's not get crazy.
Well,
no, they didn't.
Phillies fans took a 10-year sabbatical. Chris.
Yeah.
True that. But what I was going to say is the disrespect of the National League champions. When I think we got where do we get definitively worse? We got a better bullpen this year. That was one of our biggest weaknesses last year. it's improved. Yeah, we have Hoskins out for the year, but other than that, and Harper will be coming back in, a couple months. But why is it like I don't understand why it's such a drastic like what is it, fifth? You said sixth? What was it?
They're ranked. They're fifth ranked in national. I mean, listen, they only won 87 games last year, so let's not act like they won 95 or 96.
But again, that's
The national pundits see us as a flash in the pan. They see us as a team without its star for an unknown amount of time.
That's the thing, I think.
Right. It's 100% what it is. Because even though we pick up Trey Turner, it's like we didn't.
that's what I was going to say. Was Trey Turner like just a Joe Blow shortstop? I mean,
Right.
we're giving him $300 million. Like, you don't think they don't take into account that sort of acquisition?
Or they love Gene Segura. Maybe they love Gene Segura. They don't think it's that big of an upgrade.
Or they hate Nicky Bats. For the record, I think he's going to have a decent year. He can't be much worse.
Are you in on Castellanos or are you out on Castellanos?
You gotta be.
So you're on the bandwagon this year.
I'm look, it was only 1 year. I was hard on him. I'm hoping that, he could prove us wrong, but I gotta have faith in him. Second year, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. So if he does it again, then I'm out. But
it had to be the floor for him. It had to be.
It had to be.
I always get concerned when people like what he said was, I wasn't comfortable last year, but I'm comfortable now. Like, what makes you comfortable now? Like, what changed?
Well, he said a lot of with being in a new city, and a big city at that, and with a big team. You know how this market can be. I don't know if he's really been used to that playing, and he played. He had a cup of coffee with the Cubs, but playing in Cincinnati and Detroit, I don't know how hard-nosed those baseball fans in those towns are, but
that's not going to change.
He had a child this past year, so not getting a chance to see his children a lot. Wait on him, he said. So maybe more comfort now in that situation. Child's a little bit older. His other son is a little bit older now, so who knows? I don't know. Maybe it'll be just him, just more so just being like, okay, we know how it was 1 year. Second year, this is what we got to improve upon. I can't do X, Y, and Z. I can do X, Y, and Z. Here's the plan. Maybe it'll work out for him.
Chris, I think you're right. A lot of times we forget the human factor with pro athletes. I mean, it's still a guy. He's moving to a new town, uprooting his whole family to a city that has the reputation of being hard on its players. We were hard on him. Yeah. And for some guys, like, it's not, you can't just flip that switch and you're a robot and you just beep, boop, beep, boop. Like, it's sometimes.
And everybody can't play here.
No,
everybody can't. And I'm hoping, and I said this on one of the shows last summer, that I'm hoping that he's not one of those guys we look back and we're like, this guy was just not a Philly dude. And I'm hoping that that's not the case. He also said that he put more pressure on himself than anybody else did or could have. So
I'm hoping whatever like highlight video they play to hype everybody up, it has to have those catches and out in right field from the postseason. Because that's the only way. Like, we're gonna be like,
and he wasn't expecting to play in the field. I don't believe for the majority of the season. Then he got put out there, so he might have had all kind of things going in his head last year with that situation playing out how it did. So
you mentioned the highlights.
Sounds like you're a fan, Chris.
Al, you were at the 5K. Talk about the new scoreboard.
Massive. That thing is huge, dude. It takes up the entire left field. Like, it's all you see when you look out at the outfield. It is humongous. It's going to be really impressive because it wasn't on when we went into the stadium, but it's overwhelmingly big. I can't state this enough how big that screen is.
That's fantastic.
So how big are these screens going to get? Like, I mean, we go to the Sixers games. Well, like Wells Fargo Center, the screen there, if you go to, especially the second level, and you stand like the first row in the middle of the mid-court, second level, it is like you're in front of I don't even know, 2 million inch television or whatever you want to like equivalent to it. Like, it's huge. And you're literally like it's like in your face, let alone the Phillies one where it's, further away, but it's still like it's got to be the biggest in baseball at this point, right?
Well, Chris, I know you're a big wrestling guy. When a clip of like Raw or something will sneak onto my Twitter feed, right? Bro, what is going on with the stage? Yeah. Like, the whole stage is one enormous video screen now. Like like you're saying right now, I guess is that the wave of the future for all sporting events where you just have these obnoxiously humongous screens.
Yeah,
Bigger's
and
better.
don't front. I ain't the only wrestling fan on this chat. Don't front.
So I know Al had some questions for us. So, but before I wrap it up, I want you guys to one word, yes or no. Who wins more games, Phillies or Cardinals? Somebody.
Chris,
Phillies.
I'll say Cardinals only because of the division they're in. I think the NL Central stinks, and they'll just beat up on them.
I'll go Phillies. Phillies or Brewers?
Phillies.
Phillies.
Phillies as well. Phillies or Dodgers?
Phillies. Give me the Phils.
Phillies. Call me a homer.
Phillies. Phillies or Padres?
Tough.
I'm
You
going
don't-
Padres.
Yeah, you don't want to say it. I'll say Padres.
Phillies. Call me a homer.
I'll say Padres.
All right, let's get to the big ones. Phillies or Mets?
Phillies. F the Mets.
Yeah, Phillies.
I'll go Phillies as well. Phillies or Braves?
Phillies. F the Braves.
Well, I guess I got them as the number 1 seed. I guess 100 wins.
I'm going Braves. Braves are nasty.
I gotta look at the roster again for the Braves, but I would imagine that they'll find a way. They're just a good organization. They'll
It's
find
the
a
same
way.
team as last year. Plus
Yeah,
Ozzy Albies.
well, they lost Swanson.
Yeah, they did lose Swanson, but the Albies is back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
For the
I
sake
think they'll
of
find a way to
objective-
do better. But
For the sake of being objective, I'll say Braves.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll do that because I do think that they're a better team overall right now.
So Al, you had some prop bets you wanted to throw at us, maybe?
Yeah, they're not even prop bets. I saw them online where like there was just a bunch of rapid fire questions and like guys were just putting their answers to them, like what, one word answer. Obviously if you guys want to pontificate a bit about your answer, feel free. But I just have I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And again, be as quick as you want or Chris, be as long-winded as you want. So the first question I have here is who's going to hit the first home run of the season for the Phils?
Derek Hall.
Woo.
Off Jacob deGrom.
This is an easy one. Come on, Chris.
I'm gonna go with a sleeper. I'm gonna pick my boy Stott.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm taking Trey Turner lead off game 1.
No way.
Lead off of the Grom, game 1.
And I'm the
There's
homer
a lot of
in this
fandom
league.
going on in this
Yeah, I'm the
podcast
homer.
today. Although Schwarber went deep the lead off the last season.
See,
I could have went total heel and said Castellanos.
I thought you were going to for a second.
That's not heel, that's face.
Well, actually, yeah, you're right. It would have been against my brand, but yeah, you're right.
All right. Second question is what rank will the Phillies come in by the end of the season in team home runs hit? For a little bit of history here from last year, they came in 6th last year with 205 home runs, just below the Dodgers at 212, and the Yankees were first with 254.
Okay, so Major League, not National League.
Yeah, Major League. And they were 4th if you count just National League. I'm gonna say a little bit of a drop off.
Me too.
So I'm gonna say 8.
I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with 10 actually. I mean, Harper's obviously missing, but he missed a decent amount last year. Again, Hoskins, I think we'll see what Hall gets, but Hoskins was a lock for 28, 29 homers. Center field, I don't know if you're getting a lot of pop. Second base, we'll find out.
So there was
Bohm's an X factor. He
say.
added on some muscle.
Right.
So we'll see.
There was a bit of a logjam last year. The Phillies had 205, and then right behind them were the Blue Jays at 200, the Rangers at 198, and the Cardinals and Mariners both with 197. So I just feel like there's a lot of teams that, they're going to go up and down. It's like turnovers in the NFL.
Yeah, I'll go 10th, but the offense should be good.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 5th. I'm gonna say 5th because I think Bohm's gonna hit. I hope he can hit 20 by now at this point this year. That's gonna be a big jump for him, but he, like you said, apparently he's gotten a little bit stronger in the offseason. So I think Stott's got some pop for over a span of a full season.
And we could see some regression from Schwarber. What is Schwarber at 47 last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Hall's got a lot of. I think Hall's got 30 home run potential.
I think Schwarber's going to hit for average a little bit more this year with the shift, getting rid of the shift. He's not going to have to. He's not going to have to be feast or famine anymore. I mean, he was 47 runs, 200 strikeouts.
Yeah, that's a great point.
It was clear what his approach at bat was.
Right.
All right. How many All-Star game representatives will the Phillies have? You can name them if you want.
Well, hell, we had what 4 on the World Baseball Classic roster. And that's not counting the pitchers.
Well, that's not counting Garrett Stubbs playing for Team Israel.
Yeah,
Alvarado was on the Dominican, I think. I'm going to go with 3. Trey Turner, JT, and then I'll go with one of the pitchers, whether it's Zach or Nola, although I hope it's Zach, considering he got completely snubbed last year.
So I'll go JT's a lock. I think Trey's a lock. I'm going to say it's I agree, one of the top pitchers, Nola or Wheeler. And I'm going to go with Sir Anthony, making it as a closer.
Do you think he's the closer?
Whoever the closer is, I'm going to have them as
I hope
I like the ball. I like the pen this year, man. And I think that as long as they have their roles clear cut, I think he should be the closer. But
so hang on that. That's my next question.
Okay.
So my next question is about the closer. But as far as all-star representatives, I have the same 2 with Turner and JT being locks. I think we could potentially get both Nola and Wheeler. And then I also had Sir Anthony, just assuming he was the closer. So I have 5 on my list.
Yeah, I mean, there's a definitive clear world where that could happen.
Problem is every team gets a representative, so it squeezes out some of the other players.
Yeah, you're right.
Which is a joke, but
it is a joke.
All right, next question is, who ends the regular season as the Phillies closer? So you got Sir Anthony, you got Alvarado, you got Kimbrel, Gregory Soto, if you want to get dicey.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Dominguez.
How about somebody not on the roster?
You think it's somebody they bring up or somebody they trade for?
I think they're going to trade for somebody.
You think with that pen we got now, they're still going to have to trade for? Listen, if they got to trade for a bullpen piece, something happened.
And a closer.
I mean, listen, I'm going out on a limb, but I'm seeing maybe a Sir Anthony injury and Kimbrel's not as effective as we want him.
That's what I'm saying. Well, that's a problem.
Yeah,
that's a huge problem. If you're right, then we're not in a good spot.
Again, I'm going out on a limb there, but listen. I'd rather see Sir Anthony close. I think he's your closer of the future. I think he's the guy you should be putting in there, but I feel like they're going to start the season with Craig Kimbrel as the closer. And I actually think he'll be okay. I don't really have any issues. I've major issues about Gregory Soto. I'm not a Soto guy, but I think they're going to use Kimbrel and I think he'll be fine. But I'd rather see Dominguez personally.
I mean, the closer for the future. How many years we got to? I mean, he's been up here for already a handful of years.
They won't put him in that role.
So that's the worry, is that there's something that they see that apparently the rest of us don't, and they don't like to put him consistently in that spot. But
he's closed out World Series games. What more do you need to see?
Yeah.
And I know. But then you could argue, why did they even go after Kimbrel then? Because Kimbrel, I can't imagine Kimbrel came here with the impression that he would have no chance to be a closer.
I agree with you. So
I think they're going to start off with Kimbrel as the closer. And I think that I like Kimbrel too, but I could see a situation where he ends up being like a what's his face? The guy we had last year.
Robertson?
No, Knable or whatever.
No.
Right? Corey Knable. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
so,
look,
there's
a lot of teams now who use that other reliever that's arguably better than the closer and just save him for high leverage situations, whether it's the 7th inning, getting through the heart of the order, or, the 8th inning with 2nd and 3rd and 2 outs. And maybe that's what they want to use Dominguez as, but I'm more of a traditionalist. I'd rather see him close.
And I love Brogdon and Bellotti too in our middle of that pen. Like those guys Brogdon especially he's a horse, man. I have a lot of faith in that dude. Both of those guys.
Nobody's even mentioned Alvarado, who was the best pitcher in the bullpen at the end of last year.
Well, here's why I don't. And I don't it's a weird thing I have. I don't know why, I don't know where it comes from. I get scared of lefty closers.
I'm not even saying to close. I'm just talking about the strength of the bullpen.
Oh no, he's definitely a strength. But as far as like to answer Al's question with like who's going to be a closer at the end of the year, Alvarado's got the stuff too. But I get leery of lefties as in that position.
Thompson showed his hand last year, though. He's going to play based off of feeling, and maybe not in the regular season. Don't get me wrong, but towards crunch time, and then especially if we make a playoff run again, he's going to play the lineups. He's going to play the situation. So I could see any one of those guys. I think it's going to end up being Kimbrel because again, why do you bring him in and why does he come here? If not, that's if that's not at least part of the conversation of what his role is going to be. But I see Thompson doing a little bit of what he did last year. All right, three questions left. Which pitcher for the Phillies is going to end the season with the most strikeouts? Which pitcher?
Aaron Nola.
2-horse race.
The 1-horse race, I think. I think they're going to monitor Wheeler's workload.
I think
I would say Nola too.
I think that's easy. What about what batter is going to end the season with the most strikeouts? And remember, we had 200 strikeouts from Kyle Schwarber last year.
Yeah,
that's a career high.
Yeah,
it was like 50 more than he had ever recorded in a full season.
I mean, unless he gets hurt, excuse me, unless he gets hurt or Hall is worse than now. Ryan Howard was at the plate as a lefty power hitter with strikeouts. I think Schwarber's definitely in that position to get the most.
It's definitely Schwarber because even if Hall is striking out at that rate, they're going to not play him against left-handed pitching, so he's not going to get the same amount of at bats.
True.
True.
Yeah, I think the sneaky candidate runner-up could be Castellanos, though.
Yeah,
he has a pretty high strikeout percentage rate over his career, and if Schwarber takes it back a little bit, like I said, and isn't swinging for the fences with every at bat, he might hit for average a little bit more.
I'll take
Last
that.
Last question. We have 3 young stud pitchers down in the minors that everybody knows about. We have Andrew Painter, Mitch McGarry, and Mick Abel. Call up, keep down, trade one. What do you do?
No.
Well, it's not a fair question because Painter's hurt.
It's F, marry, kill, my friend, is what it is. In case you haven't figured it out.
Yeah. It's easy for me. McGarry's traded. Abel is the send down, and Painter's the F, so to speak,
or the marry.
Oh yeah, well yeah. Actually, I'm sorry, I misspoke. It'd be the marry one. Yeah.
So right. I'll do a little bit different than Chris. Obviously I'll bring up Painter, assuming he's healthy, obviously, but I'll trade Abel just under the context. You got to give up something to get something, and I think that Abel has more value because of what he is than McGarry, who again may just be a middle of the road arm. So I think if you're trying to make that move to get yourself over the hump, you may have to give up an Abel. So do I think Abel's better than McGarry? Sure, but I also think he gives you more value in the trade market to bring something back.
I looked at it the same way you did. I thought we could get more back for Abel, so I would trade Abel and I would keep McGarry in the minors. And obviously,
where would you be? What are you looking to trade for? What position?
It depends what the need is at the time. I mean, again, you mentioned Suarez. If Suarez doesn't come back to full strength, maybe we need a starting pitcher who's more playoff ready at that point in time. If somebody gets hurt, if Alec Boehm gets hurt, do you need a third baseman somewhere along the line with some pop? So I think it's more of just a wait and see approach. I mentioned that maybe we need a closer depending on what happens.
So, I'm a fan. I don't think it'll. I don't know. It may happen, maybe not. Norristown's own Christian Walker.
I mentioned him on Twitter.
Oh, did you? Yeah, bringing him back.
I mean, he's a great
not
fit.
Back, but bringing him back home, but not back to Phillies, but back to this area.
Numbers wise, he's almost exactly what Hoskins gives you offensively, but he was also a Gold Glove first base.
Right, that's what I was going to say. That's the difference for me.
I think
he is older though.
What'd you say?
He is I think he's like 32 though, right? I think he's
like a touch older than Hoskins, but not much.
Yeah.
I do think Arizona sneakily thinks they're going to be okay this year, so I don't see that coming soon. But that's a wait and see. And again, I mean, nobody mentioned first base may be what they need to address it come trade deadline time.
Right.
If you don't have anything else, I just want to. We talked about the rules a couple of weeks ago. I've completely flipped. I'm out on the pitch clock.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? I can't wait to go to a game and see this in person.
Yeah, I think it should be 10 seconds.
I think that maybe
Five
they
even.
need to amend
Make
it.
it a football game.
But I mean, listen, we were podcasting the other night, but last week when the World Baseball Classic ended, and you have that Ohtani Trout showdown at the end of the game. And part of the beauty of that is the Ohtani stepping off the mound, breathing in the moment, collecting his thoughts and getting on the mound. So maybe it's, from the seventh inning on, there's no pitch clock, and we can use it for the first 6 innings. But I think if you're trying to rush through moments like that in the eighth and ninth inning, sometimes these guys need to take a step off the mound and just take a breathe and relax for a second. And I think you're going to miss that a little bit in the game when you watch it, especially come playoff time.
Not fam, not me. I'm good.
We'll
I'm
see.
good with them. I'm good with them. Like, what other sport do they have that luxury?
Golf.
I mean, what if you're
Well,
on
team sport.
If you're on the free throw line in the NBA? I mean, you have 10 seconds, but you could.
Yeah, there's a
step
clock
back
still.
Oh, if you're Giannis, you have about 40 seconds.
Right. No, they have a clock. I mean, and
Yeah, it's not enforced though. In
I
reality,
think Giannis has made it enforced at this point. It wasn't before guys like him started messing around. You're right. But I think the last year or two, I wouldn't agree with that. But I don't know how often it's called, because how often is it needed to be called? That's another thing. Like, again, we talked the other day about like the evolution of the position with these rules in place. Down the road, a year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is down the line, pitchers are going to be conditioned to that time frame. And you're going to forget that back in the day, like, yeah, you had all day. It wasn't even a clock. You could just take an hour and a half. You could be Steve Traxel and take 2.5 minutes in between pitches, and nobody cared. Like, we're going to get to that point at some day where we tell our kids that, like, yeah, believe it or not, they didn't have a clock in baseball. I think it makes the game a lot better, more competitive, and it evens the playing field a little bit, because there are guys that really are dominant that now have to change their game.
I just think come the end of games, you're going to be rushing through some moments. And again, for the first 6 innings, I got no problem with it. I think towards the end of games, I'd like it to kind of slow down and be what it was. So,
well, they give you 20, don't they?
Listen,
After, if the guy's on base,
20 with guys on base, I think.
Yeah. So it's
I could maybe agree with you for potentially Phillies playoff games, but if I'm just watching a playoff game with two teams I don't care about or whatever, if the pitchers are taking that long in between and the batters taking that long, you know what I'm doing in between, Adam?
Look,
I got my phone out.
Yeah, I heard.
Like they're losing my attention, and which is sick to say, because you're talking about I can't keep my attention focused on the TV for 20 seconds. But in all seriousness, what am I doing? I'm just waiting. So
right.
I don't.
We're not trying to spend, especially for a playoff game, 4 hours watching a miscellaneous non-Phillies playoff game on
Right.
like that.
Chris,
no one's got time for that.
Let me tell you this: if the Phillies aren't in the playoffs, you're not going to be watching that playoff game anyway. Whether they're
Probably not.
Yeah. So
probably not.
Yeah. Listen, we'll see. I mean, none of us have really. I mean, listen, I haven't watched much spring training, so I haven't really experienced it yet. We'll see come Thursday.
Well, this is the Phillies preview, right? So what's the prediction? We have to end on that. What's the season prediction?
It's great. Okay. I think they finished right around last year. I'll give them 89 wins, a wild card, and a first round exit this year.
Past the wild card, like
no, I think they lose. I think they lose in the wild card round. The 2 out of 3.
Wow. So that means
when are you ever wait a minute, positive about a Philly team?
That means if they're healthy,
I gotta roll in this podcast. I gotta bring you guys down, because all you do is boost these teams up with these inflated expectations.
We just came off the World Series and the Super Bowl. How would we wrong on anything?
You know what? Do you know in recent weeks I've heard people ask me if Chris is supposed to be A, the hot take guy, or B, the comic relief.
Listen, well, guess what? What have I said that's been definitively, like, what were you thinking about? Wrong. Honestly, what have I said?
We can go back and check tape.
So I'm gonna take that as disrespect. What have I said that has been definitively wrong in the span of the 9 months you've been doing this?
Fans, tweet us.
Yeah,
if you're
let me know
that was wrong.
If you're listening to the pod, just text us. Text me after you listen.
Please let me know.
Look, to be fair, I said the Eagles were a Super Bowl team all season. I'd say what I see with these eyes.
You're the most You're the most subjective of the three of us. I'm a little more subjective than I thought I was going to be, but it's hard, man. It's hard to.
Wow, you were a big 49er pusher for a while.
Yeah, you're a big
Yeah,
Niners
You were a
guy.
big 49er guy.
The disrespect, Chris. How about the 49ers being picked to have more wins than the Eagles this season?
Oh, and then they picked up another former Eagle. They're obviously clearly trying to emulate a certain team in the national.
They get
They didn't have a quarterback.
No quarterback, and they got
Who
an
they pick
11.5 line. They picked up Matt Pryor, but he was an Eagle, former
yeah,
Eagle.
I didn't see that move.
Yeah,
All right, Chris. How far do you got the Phillies going?
94 wins.
All right,
So
I got them at 90. I think wild card. I think NLDS.
All right, that's not that much different than me.
Chris, World Series run.
why not? I'm a joke. Why not? Get the joke out.
Chris, I'll tell you who said it when we go to break.
All right.
I am very curious how this next segment's going to go. Usually we do a national sports story, and we'll touch a little bit on March Madness, but we had the Philadelphia 76ers with a really, really rough week, and it was capped off by some unspeakable not showing up to the game last night from Joel Embiid. So we will be right back with segment 2. We will talk Sixers and some NCAA tournament. We'll be right back. Welcome back to segment 2, where we're going to talk Sixers basketball. Since we last left you, the Sixers are 1-3. They had a nice win at Chicago. I mean, we can call it a shady win is what we can call it. The Joel Embiid mysterious disappearance doesn't show up for the second half game. Then they go out west and they drop 3 in a row. Tough loss at Golden State, followed by a really, really poor performance at Phoenix. But then last night, what was supposed to be the main event at Denver, Joel Embiid and James Harden do not play. Paul Reed tries to lead my boys back into the game late, fall a little bit short against the Denver Nuggets. Public perception is not looking good for Joel based on what happened. Chris, I'll go to you first. I don't know if we're going to differ or not on this situation. Talk about your thoughts on Embiid sitting out last night, what that's going to do to his MVP cases, and how concerned you are about this stretch of basketball for this team as we close down the season.
It'd be easy, or I would love to be able to come out here and say, like, well, Embiid doesn't need to beat Jokic one-on-one. He's already done that once this year. This isn't a big game for the Sixers as it is for the Nuggets, all that kind of stuff. But my heart doesn't feel that way. My heart feels like it was a big game, not just for Embiid versus Jokic, but these are two teams. This could still be a finals preview. Let's be honest. I mean, Denver is in the 1 spot in the West. Sixers are in the 3rd spot. For a while, they were still fighting for that 2. So they're very much right there in the picture. And it very well could have been an NBA finals preview. I think the game do I think Embiid is legitimately hurt or banged up? Yes, I do. I don't think that's made up or some sort of fabrication. I saw it firsthand the other night on TV when he was on the other end of the court. I think it was the first time that they reported it when he grabbed his calf. I did see that.
Well, it's almost time for the playoffs, so why wouldn't he be hurt?
Yep. Same old shit.
Same old disrespect is what this is.
Same story.
But listen,
Same story,
so
different year.
I took my train of thought from the hateration took my whole train of thought, Seltzer. I think that I saw the odds for MVP now are even for both of them. They're both at -130, I think, as of like 6 o'clock. I don't know what it is now, but for him to come out with that story, not him, but who was it? The Ringer, or who was the
Shams.
Okay, with the article.
Yeah,
so
for Athletic.
I think he was kind of licking shots a little bit at Jokic.
A little bit.
Well, because there were some people that were acting like he was babying, saying like, well, he's just trying to like get the sympathy vote. And I'm like, I think you need to listen to that again. I think he's directly taking shots at Jokic, saying, bro, now you won all these MVP awards and you had to potentially win a 3rd straight. You got the pressure. You're the one that's supposed to do something and justify these awards. I haven't won anything. I haven't even been a first team all NBA because of your ass. Why do I have the pressure? And he's right.
He's not right.
He is right. He's 100% right. When you compare him to Jokic and the accolades he's got, why does Embiid have the pressure?
That's fine.
That's a
Like
different.
Jokic should have pressure too, but Joel Embiid thinks and arguably is a top 5 player in this league. This is his 5th year in the playoffs, and I'm not even counting the COVID year in the bubble because that team was a disgrace. So I'm not even going to blame him for that. It's his 5th year in the playoffs. He has to prove something.
What does
That's not
Jokic got to do? Jokic got
Jokic-
2 MVPs.
I say both of them do, but don't act like there's no pressure on you because you haven't won an MVP. That's
My
bullshit.
point. No, I'm saying if you compare in a vacuum,
They both should have the same amount of pressure. Okay, like they both should.
I don't. How can they have the same amount of pressure? You gave a guy 2 MVPs.
It doesn't
He's
matter.
got just
They're
as
in
far.
they're
I'm
the
sorry,
same echelon.
further.
Listen, I understand Jokic has 2 MVPs, but if you ask anybody, it's 50-50 on who's better. And to be fair, Jokic has gotten to a conference final. He's gotten further than Joel.
So I said he got a couple games further than Embiid did, but he
Okay.
also has a couple more accolades than Embiid has.
I'm not
And he's
arguing
the one that has to have the pressure when you compare the two of them. Now, if you're saying who's the biggest pressure on the Sixers or whatever, of course it's Embiid. But when you talk about Embiid versus Jokic, that's there's no way Embiid should have more pressure than Jokic.
they're 1 and 2 as far as who needs to have a playoff performance. There's
Right, but so it sounds like you're saying Embiid is still the one, and I don't think that's right.
no, that's
Embiid-
fine. I'm arguing
Embiid's
that what I'm
Embiid's
saying
the one
is-
to us because we're in Philadelphia. There's no way he should be the one. He should
No,
even
he's
No.
not. He's not. But the article said, "Why should I have any pressure?" Like you should still have pressure. Just because you don't have the most doesn't mean you shouldn't have any.
That part I do.
He
agree
has
with.
something to prove.
Yeah,
he
does
hasn't
have
done
something
it.
to prove. He does have something to prove, but in terms of the pinnacle of the pressure, it is not Embiid in this league.
That's
It
fine.
is Nikola Jokic,
That's
who is
fine.
about to do something that only 2 other guys in the history of basketball have ever done, and this guy has nothing to show for it, other than
That's
stat nerds giving him the MVP 3 straight years.
I agree with you. That's fine. But if we were putting it on a scale of 1 to 100, if Jokic is 100, Embiid's like 97 as far as pressure. Like he is in that. He comes on and he says,
He's not even a top seed in this conference.
"Whose fault is that?"
But,
Yeah,
but like, why would you expect the 3 seed to be the one that's going to be the representative in your conference?
I would
and have him have
argue
all the
this.
pressure?
I would argue this. It's fine pressure wise if Joel Embiid gets to a conference final. Nikola Jokic has to go to the finals in order to live up to
Jokic has to win a ring to justify his career. He's had 2, possibly 3 straight MVPs and has played a handful more games than his main competitor, yet his main competitor gets the beef. And I'll tell you who else gets let off easy on this. And it's only because he actually got the ring, and I respect that. But when you talk about turnovers per game, you talk about other things that we are holding against Embiid. Giannis is right there.
Stop. Giannis dropped 50 in a clinching game in the NBA Finals. Like he gets a pass.
I said, but he won a ring, so I can't say I'm not going to hope. But at the same time, this year specifically, I feel like why does Giannis not have the pressure more than Embiid does?
because
He's the
because
one
they're
that's got the
50,
number 1
they're the
seed
1
right now.
seed, and they're very likely going to come out of the East. Like I think there is pressure on Giannis, but he's got it. He's got the title. Like his resume has a championship on it. Joel Embiid doesn't even have a conference final with appearance.
I understand that. But when you're talking about right now, in this situation, when Giannis is on the best, he's arguably the best player in the world and the best player in the NBA, or I mean the best team in the NBA, how does he not have more pressure right now than Embiid?
Because he's done
Embiid
it.
has pressure. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he doesn't. But to say he's at the most pressure in the league is inaccurate. I'm sorry. It's just inaccurate.
I agree with you. Jokic has more, but Embiid is second. Like he's got to do it this year.
What do we talk about when we say about the Sixers with a successful season? We got to get to the finals, the conference finals, and that. Jokic and Giannis, do you think that they're satisfied based on winning MVPs and also Giannis winning a ring with just getting to a conference final?
No, I don't.
So then how does Embiid have more pressure on him than those 2 have?
because he talks the most shit. That's
I don't care about the talking. I'm talking
But
about
that's a huge
like,
reason why
legitimately
Chris, that's a huge reason why the national media comes down on him and why we do too as fans. He talks so much shit. He never
So if
just
Trae
showed
Young
up.
talked a bunch of trash, does he have the most pressure in
No,
the league?
because Trae Young's not elite. Trae Young's that next
Trae Young's also been to a conference final.
Oh,
Yeah,
my God.
yeah. He's also
now-
beaten Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is of the elite 5 players in the league. He talks the most shit behind just only KD, and KD has the rings.
Of the top 5 guys, of the top 6 guys in the league, he's the only one that hasn't been there. The only one.
So that makes him so now because of his self-inflicted trash talk that he's giving out to other.
It's that combined with him being one of the world's best players. Yes.
So now we're putting more pressure on him that's non-basketball related. We're just saying based on public opinion, he now has the most pressure.
Yeah, dude,
That
the
was the
loudmouth that talks the most shit is the one that everybody wants to shut up. And that's what Joel Embiid is.
Absolutely. You can't listen. As far as last night goes, from a macro objective self, I'm fine with him sitting out. If he's hurt, we talked about 2 weeks ago on the podcast, the number one priority is health, health, health.
Correct.
And if he's banged up, if we need him for the playoffs, I'm okay with him sitting out in the big picture of everything. But I just don't understand from an organizational standpoint, why is he playing on a back-to-back Friday, Saturday, and then sitting out Monday, when realistically, he also put in this article that the MVP doesn't mean that much to him. Like, the more you talk about it, dude, it means something to you.
They asked him about it.
What?
He didn't wake up. Hey, Joel, what do you think about the game? I mean, if I win MVP, I'm all right.
Do you act like he couldn't? You act like he couldn't have said, "I don't want to do this article. I don't want to do this interview. Like, I got my mind focused."
And he said he looks more like a bitch if he backs out the article.
Why? Nobody would know he backed out of it. He didn't. He declined an interview. Listen. He had the opportunity last night to stamp the MVP. I'm not saying he lost it at this point, because I do think it's still up in the air. But he could have put the nail in the coffin last night. And listen, for whatever reason, if he's banged up, that's the way he chose to go. It's 50-50 now. And honestly, with the Sixers schedule and the way I see them kind of playing this out down the stretch to get healthy, I don't think he's going to end up winning it.
Listen. He took last night's game off for 2 reasons, in my opinion. Number one, because he's petty. And because I really do think that even though he needs the rest, he is banged up. I think this is a middle finger to the league. This is him saying, F you play this game all the time. You compare me with this dude that I am way better than, and you make me out to be some second-rate asshole next to him. Well, guess what? You're not going to get this matchup that you want. So that's number one, because I think it's a middle finger to the league. It's a middle finger to the Denver fans. It's a middle finger to everybody. Number two, Adam, if you look at the way the schedule shakes out, I get that everybody's like, sit him on one of the back-to-backs. If you sit him on Monday, you get 3 straight days of rest. If you sit him for the second half of the back-to-back, you get 2. So if you sit him on Monday, you get Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then you head into the Dallas game tomorrow night at home. So for me, organizationally, that's potentially what their defense is going to be. That's what they're going to say. Now, if he loses the MVP based on sitting out a game or 2 at the end of the season, this is deja vu all over again with Jalen Hurts, and it's bullshit. You lose the MVP, which is supposed to be a season-long award, because you miss 1 or 2 games at the end of the season.
Perfect attendance award.
It's a crock of shit.
I don't think he loses the award because he sat out last night. I think he has a potential of losing the award because they've now lost 4 out of 5, and I think they're going to kind of take the foot off the gas down the stretch. And if they go, what do we have? 7 games left. If they go 3-4. Then all of a sudden, Jokic has a significantly better record, the 1 seed, and a ton of momentum moving forward. That's more of, I think, than sitting out last night.
There's 7 games left, like you said, and I fully believe that we're going to see one of 2 things happen. Joel Embiid is going to play in 6 of those 7 games, potentially maybe even all 7 if he's feeling healthy enough, and he's going to go on a monster run of the likes that potentially we haven't even seen yet, even from earlier in this March, when he was averaging, what was it, like 36 and 12 or whatever. And he's just going to say, I'm the MVP. I dare you not to give it to me. I'm the MVP. Or he's going to play 4 or 5 games. He's going to show fatigue. He's going to show that he's hurt, and we're cooked. And then we know where the story ends from there. We're going to know. We're going to know in the next 2 weeks.
I think bottom line is this guy has put himself, not necessarily by his own fault, but just a lot of different reasons, is a guy who just can't win. If he doesn't play, he's backing up and he's soft. if he plays and then gets hurt. Why did you play? You're being selfish. Seltzer, you're still holding him accountable for the Sixers organization bad decisions. And
I would love
how
to
do we even know that Embiid was the reason that he didn't play that game on Monday? How do we know that there wasn't the training staff that insisted he not play?
We don't.
They've done it with Harden all year.
But I want to know what your reaction would be if Nikola Jokic put out an article saying, I don't have much pressure. Joel should have the pressure. You know, his defense isn't as good as the analytics. And then that night said, I'm out. I don't need to play tonight. I want to know what your reaction on this podcast would be. You'd be calling him soft. You'd be calling him weak. He also not going to say on this podcast. You would be trashing him if he did that.
If he had those 2 MVPs already that he has, and he said that basically, you know, and you said that if he said Embiid had the pressure on him, I would say he sounded like
the role was reversed. If the role was reversed and Jokic came out with an article about Embiid or an interview that had Embiid stuff trashing him, and then said, I don't need to play tonight. I don't need to have any.
So like if Embiid had the 2 MVPs?
Sure.
Is that what you're saying?
Sure. And then Jokic had all the momentum for the MVP this year. You know what you'd be saying. You don't have to think about it.
I'm trying to think of how to like express it the way I'm intending to express it. That's why I'm still thinking. I feel like I don't care anymore what he says. This is beyond what Embiid or anybody else in the league, like as far as the players, Jokic, Giannis, Embiid. I don't care what they say, what they think. As fans, as a league, as folks who have votes in these awards, this is something that we have to stop. This guy's about to win his 3rd straight MVP.
So you've given up.
Joining Larry Bird and Bill Russell.
You're saying Jokic got it.
Has done nothing. What?
You're saying Jokic got it. You're saying he's won it. That's what you're saying?
I'm saying potentially.
Okay. Okay.
With whether it's Embiid's fault or not, he's right on the doorstep, the cusp of it. Okay. And he's going to be joining Russell and Larry Bird, I believe. Only guys in the history of the league. That's a disgrace. You're going to put Jokic in the category with those 2 guys. Those are all-time legends. So you're saying basically Jokic is a Pantheon-esque player in the NBA and has won nothing. Bill Russell, 11 rings. Larry Bird has won rings.
I think we're all on the same page in the NBA Finals. I think we're all on the same page there. Like, I don't think that any of us believe that Jokic should be a 3-time MVP.
And the ironic thing is, he deserves it this year more so than he did before. Last year was Joel's year to win.
Here's the problem. Who's the best player in the NBA, would you say?
I think it's Embiid.
It might be. It fluctuates for me, like depending on the night they have. Embiid's in the conversation, Tatum's in the conversation, Giannis, Luka.
You're giving me full health. Everybody's at full strength. Every team, every key player, every whatever. I think it's Joel Embiid.
Okay, let me. This may be a better way to put it. If somebody was in this podcast and said Joel Embiid is the best player in the NBA, I think they have a valid argument. Would you agree? Yeah. If somebody said Giannis, I think you would have an argument.
Yeah.
If somebody said Steph Curry, I think you may have an argument. If somebody said Durant, you'd probably have an argument. If somebody said Jokic, they would have an argument. So we're going to look back on this in history and be like, holy shit, Jokic won 3 straight MVPs. He must have been the best player in the league. And it's like,
it's going to be what it's going to be. It's Steve Nash all over again, man.
It's 100%. And it's skewed because not only are we saying that about Jokic, but we're going to also say that about Russell Westbrook in the future. Yeah. Kids are going to think Russell Westbrook was the best point guard of all time. And we've seen him and know he is severely flawed. And Jokic is in the same boat. And Jokic he has a skill set, and I'm not saying he's a bum. I'm not saying that.
Jokic is great. I still think Embiid's better, but Jokic is great.
But at the same time, we literally saw Korkmaz torch him last night. Korkmaz went right, did the okie doke on him. Korkmaz ain't played in what? He played once or twice in the last 2 months. Like this guy, he's a turnstile. There's gotta be something to be said. Again, you want to put him in the category with Bill Russell. Bill Russell's arguably the greatest defensive player of all time. Okay. Larry Bird is up there with all his accolades he's gotten. It's not cool. You're tainting the history of the league.
Yep.
Is it the kid's fault? Probably not. But we're here now, and these stat nerds have screwed up our league by having this guy win 3 MVPs and had no other hardware to show for it.
All right, we're all on the same page there. I'm not going to argue with you as far as that goes. My bigger argument is Joel has to have a postseason. Like, can we all just agree that he has to have a postseason?
Sure he does, but so does Tatum, so does Steph Curry, so does
No,
Luka.
those guys have all done it before.
And Chris, we're not a Boston podcast. We're a Philly podcast, man.
No,
Joel
but this is an NBA
has to
segment,
do it.
and there's other teams in the league that are also going to be in the playoffs that have superstars, and they need to all show up.
But they've
But
all made
those guys
they've
have
all
done it
made the pass.
before. That's like saying if Bryce Harper went to the playoffs this year and shit the bed, that like, oh man, we're like out on Bryce Harper. No, he's done it before. We've seen him do it and carry us to a championship. He gets a pass. Embiid has been here.
So Jokic has done it. Jokic has carried.
I'm not saying Jokic. Jokic is the same boat as Embiid. You said Tatum and Giannis. Those guys.
John Morant.
Those guys get a pass.
Has John Morant done this?
I didn't say John, but John Morant's only been there
I'm
twice.
saying that these
John
are
Morant's been here
superstar
twice.
players.
Huh?
These are superstar players that are going to be in the same situation.
No, because I didn't say Joel Embiid had to do it his second year in the playoffs. This is Joel Embiid's fifth try at it.
Has Donovan Mitchell done it before?
Yeah, he put Utah on his back and averaged like 50 in a series that one time.
Right, but has he got a ring?
He's been to a conference final. He's been further than Joel.
But that's my point. So he still has to get a ring. So he still has to show
Do
up.
do you consider Donovan Mitchell the same level as Joel Embiid?
No, but he's their star on Cleveland. I'm not putting them all in the same bubble. Like, he's their star. He has to show up. You think if Mitchell shows up and he averages 15 a game in the playoffs, that Cleveland has a shot? No,
none. Absolutely.
So they all have to show up.
But again, like Cleveland's got years to go. Like this team is at the point where if they don't do it, it's over. It's over if they don't do it. You know that.
I'll tell you who's got pressure. Dallas has Luka and Kyrie have some. They might not even make the playoffs.
They might not.
They don't have pressure. They don't have pressure, dude.
You don't think they have any They made that trade to win a title this year.
Yeah, but they can get out of Kyrie in the offseason.
But they still made that deal to go far in the playoffs.
They're in a bad spot.
They've been worse significantly since he got there.
No, they're in a bad spot, but they don't have pressure. Kyrie's like, I mean, this is the second week in a row we're saying this. He's the poison pill on that team. Like, they're going to get away with it because it's going to be like, well, they brought Kyrie in. Like, that's their excuse.
Listen, and I'll say one more thing. So, who knows if they listen or not out there, if we have any listeners. But to Denver, Colorado, those folks that sit there, or even just Embiid haters, period. The free throw merchant BS has got to stop.
Yeah, that's
because those people have zero clue about how basketball works.
Yeah.
You have a guy that is a 7-foot plus dominant player that can go anywhere on the court and score on you. Of course, he's going to get fouled. 95% of the fouls on him are legitimate fouls. But then on top of that, you want to hate on him for that. But then he was still average at or just below what Jokic averages with free throws. And Jokic, I tweeted last night, is out here getting hockey assists. This dude's getting assists for just doing dribble handoffs.
No, the free throw merchant thing is just their easy way. It's their easy way.
It's
easy and the low hanging fruit, so to speak.
Let me
real quick. I think we all agree that probably, I don't know, Chris. It sounds like that you think Jokic might have it wrapped up. But here are the last 7 games for Denver: New Orleans at home, at Phoenix, Golden State at home, at Houston, at Phoenix again, at Utah, and then home against Sacramento.
So it's not difficult.
It's not easy.
No,
I think they could easily go 4-3. And then you look at the Sixers and our last 7 games. We have Dallas at home, Toronto at home, at Milwaukee, Boston at home, Miami at home, at Atlanta, at Brooklyn.
So there's some marquee matchups for Joel to put his stamp on it with Milwaukee and Boston.
Absolutely, dude.
Hey, hold on. I want to say one more thing.
Go ahead.
Chris, you mentioned Jason Tatum and Steph Curry and Donovan Mitchell and the pressure on those guys. You know who has more pressure than all those guys? You know, may have the third most pressure behind Jokic and Embiid?
Who's that?
James Harden.
Yeah.
Like, he's right up there. What's he done?
That's a good point.
What's our worry?
They got to show up. They all got to show up.
What's our worry scale on James Harden right now?
8.
I don't know. I gotta see him play again first before I do that. I don't know. If it's I mean, like I said last week, if again, I'm not an NBA athlete, but an Achilles sucks. So, and if you could rest it unless you're resting it for months. I don't see how he's going to be definitively better. If it's that bad for him in that little bit of time, that little bit of rest that he had.
Yeah. Can
So
I
we'll
bring a
see.
touch of levity to the situation with one final question? Unless you guys have more we can jump into, but over under 0.5 starts for Dwayne Dedmon in the playoffs.
Under, I hope. Or it's going to be over under 1.5 series for the Sixers.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, it's got to be under. He can't. Now,
If Joel misses a game, he's starting.
Because that's how our coach wants to do it. But to be fair, I don't think he played defensively at least that bad last night.
No, like he's fine, but like Paul has earned the spot. Like, stop fucking with his minutes. Sorry.
I just feel like I just feel like sometimes he looks great, and other times he looks like he's a 14-year-old raw kid that's never played basketball in gym class.
But his upside is so much better than any of the other options you have. So you just have to deal with it. Like he brings energy. He's the best rebounder on the team. He's the guy you have to run with, and he's going to make mistakes. Like I said, he is, but he brings more to the table than Dwayne Dedmon or Montrezl Harrell do, without question.
Yeah, I would agree with that. My boy got some burn last night.
Jaden, I was asleep.
Yeah.
They went down 18 in the third, but I saw that they almost came back.
He's a nice dude. He's a nice player, man. I hope he can find a way to get him a chance next year. I don't know if it's going to happen here or not, but I wanted to
be in the rotation next year.
Yeah. Well, we don't know what our team's on. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? If we lay an egg again, he might be a starter next season. You know what I mean? Like,
on, man.
Who knows? We might be back to the days. You know what I mean? But I wanted to just real quick, since this is a hoop head segment, I wanted to break the news of the Hall of Fame class that got announced just now. Dwayne Wade, Dirk Nowitzki, Pau Gasol, Tony Parker, Becky Hammond, and Greg Popovich.
Let me tell you what, that's a stacked class.
Stacked class.
Absolutely stacked.
Yep. Top
Tony
5.
Parker may go down as one of the most underrated players in NBA history.
Yeah.
He's up there. I mean,
he's true. He was tremendous. And
Gasol's the kind of guy I'm like, oh, really? But then if you look at his stats, and he's won titles, and I mean and also you got to remember he's all it's a basketball Hall of Fame.
That's exactly what I was
going to say. People forget about that. It's
his Olympic resume is pretty strong.
Right, right. Olympian.
Becky Hammond was a stud.
Yeah.
4-year starter, I believe, at Colorado State.
Well, here's the only thing about Becky
Hammond.
Hammond.
Some love here.
The only Becky Hammond issue I have is she did play for Russia in the Olympics.
She did.
Because she played there for her league years ago and decided to play for them as a country representative in the Olympics. So I don't really care for that. But hey, before we hired Rivers, I was all in on being totally progressive and having her brought in as at least an interview for the Sixers head coaching job. I think she's an excellent coach, from all accounts, an excellent leader. Someone's got to break the glass ceiling there. Someone's got
maybe Dawn Staley.
Somebody. I'd love to have Dawn back.
Friday night, will you guys watch Iowa, South Carolina? Because I think if I'm not doing anything, I'm going to tune in, man. That Caitlin Clark is something else.
I watched South Carolina last night.
Whew. That would be must-see TV Friday night.
Actually, I got Chris's Sixers tickets for Friday night. I'll be down there.
Yeah, so you're going to the game.
Sixers
yeah.
Raptors.
Yeah.
All right. I know we want to touch a little bit on the NCAA tournament. Al, I'll throw it to you. I know you wanted to speak on it.
Listen, sound the horns, guys, because I am 2 UConn wins away from winning my pool and winning a March Madness pool for the first time ever. So it was a listen, I needed everything to happen, and I needed Creighton to make the Elite Eight. I needed Miami to beat Texas.
Were you on Creighton? Did I talk you into Creighton?
No, you did not talk. I was already on Creighton prior to. Listen, check the tape. When I held the phone up to the screen, you could probably see Creighton in there. All right, get that smug.
I think we went through our Elite Eight picks, and I don't think you had them. Check the tape.
I absolutely had them because they're on the phone. They're in the bracket. So listen, UConn. I'm a UConn win away, and they are the heavy favorites to win the title. So I'm Team Huskies right now. I'm gonna buy myself a trophy, a UConn T-shirt, the whole nine if they win it all.
This has been the most. I mean, talk about historic tournament. Like, if this is the future of college basketball, literally anybody can win the tournament going forward. When we have these bracket, the selection Sundays and everything else, all bets are off. Anybody's fair game to win to get to this Final Four at this point. This is the future of college basketball.
Yeah,
Florida Atlantic
it's bonkers.
Is in the Final Four. Like, that's. I mean, what's the highest seed? You kind of as a 4 seed.
Yeah, there's a 4, 2, 5, and a
9.
Yeah.
Which most years when you add those numbers up, it averages out to be like 7. So it's a hell of a year, man. So Adam, you mentioned a lot about analytics when you pick your bracket. I have a tried and true analytics formula where I can get pretty much with certainty, near certainty, 2 or 3 of the Final Four teams every year because they come from a certain sector of analytics. And this is the first year in like 20 years it hasn't happened.
Well, I was gonna say every year we talk about like obviously nobody ever gets a perfect bracket, and then it says about who gets your Final Four correct. I don't know if anybody in the country got this Final Four.
You would have had to have went to San Diego State or FAU.
Yeah, I mean, yes, and that's I forgot to mention San Diego State. Like, nobody would have thought that they would have had the ability to get this far. Florida Atlantic, same thing. Miami, even same thing.
Yep.
UConn came on.
People had Miami losing.
You wouldn't have thought they would have been this far.
People had Miami losing to Drake in the first round.
I had it.
Yeah. So
the kid on UConn, Jordan Hawkins, is going to be a star in the NBA.
Oh, the one dude too, the
big man you like,
Adama.
I like the guard more. He's got a quick trigger and he can shoot it, and he's got size.
I'll take that UConn center to back up Joel next year. Right now,
we don't have any draft picks, so.
Well, that's true.
They got players all over the floor, man, and and I like Hurley as a coach. Let me ask you guys this: the end of the San Diego State Creighton game. Do you call that foul?
No.
Chris is consistent. Chris, it was. I mean, I was Team Creighton all the way. I had him in the final. It was the same as when we went to the Chestnut Hill game. The same call.
And I wouldn't have called that.
I know.
I'm tired. I tweeted. I'm tired of refs and umpires, whatever, dictating the end of games. It's getting so annoying. I'm all for the bots, the drones, the droids, whatever you want to throw at me to ref these games. I'm all for it because humans have messed it up.
Here's my thing. Go ahead.
I thought the play. I can't remember who the color commentator and the play-by-play guy that night, but I thought the color commentator did a wonderful job of explaining why you have to call that foul. And basically, the explanation, I don't know if you guys remember, was that you just because of the timing and the situation of a game, you can't penalize the offensive player for making a move and beating his defender. You can't penalize him by not calling the foul because when you look at it, he clearly pushes him and adjusts his shot. He does. I mean, it's objective. So the argument is like, yeah, the game's on the line, and you don't want to interject yourself and be the person that makes the call of like, how the game is going to end. But you are penalizing the offense for making a great play by not calling that foul.
I think the call, it depends on the way they're officiating the entire game. And I thought that they let that game get very physical. And again, you're talking time and space, but it's not about that. It's, did you make that call 4 minutes ago? Because if you made that call 4 minutes ago, it's maybe 2 points for one team. I thought they let them get away with a lot of contact, and I would have rather seen them play 5 more minutes. And again, if you're calling everything over the course of the game, then call that foul. That's fine. I just didn't think that's the way the rest of the game was being officiated.
If you like feel like you're in a situation where it's a tie game like that was, you have to let those kids determine the outcome of that game. Let them play in overtime and settle it. Hockey, you got to commit murder in anything after the third period on in a playoff game. You got to commit murder on the ice to get a penalty called, and that's one thing they get right. I love that about hockey because they let the players dictate the game. Now, if the guy sat there and shot a layup and got speared, then yeah, of course you got to call the foul. But something that's like, Al, I don't agree with you that it was clearly a foul.
Really? I mean,
don't
he
think it was a
clearly
I
pushed
don't
off his
think
hip and changed the trajectory of him in the air. Like he moved in the air.
but they were both moving. He was trying to defend the shooter.
And he got around him. The shooter got around him, though. He beat him.
Yeah, I had to look at it again. From when I saw the clip, I didn't think there was hand contact. It was body, if anything. And even then, I thought that it was
no. So
the fact that we're even talking about it means he shouldn't have called it.
He had him beat, and then I don't know if it was desperation or just reaction. He pushed him with his left hand. Now, I'll close with this: the angle, the one camera angle that they actually showed was from behind the ref that called the foul, and it did look a lot worse from that angle because from that angle you see the arm extend and you see the kid move away in the same direction that the arm pushed him, and then flop to the ground.
But we've seen enough basketball over the years of our lives, all three of us. Have we seen more blatant fouls at the end of the game?
I'm not defending it. I don't think he should have called it, but I think it was a foul.
Fair enough.
All right. Chris, we know who Al's rooting for. Who are you rooting for in the Final Four? Who you want to win it?
I guess I like an underdog story like everybody else. I guess Florida Atlantic. Right. I mean, part of me likes UConn too, because I mean it's a northeastern team at that point. It's the only non-tropical climate team that we got in this thing. So I don't know, but
anybody but San Diego State. I don't want to see those guys win.
What's the beef with them?
I don't know. It just seems like a boring team to me.
The fight.
I like Larinaga, and they have the Miami's got the local kid. I like the UConn kid because I like the guard a lot. And Florida Atlantic would just be a really cool story.
Yeah. My neighbor across the street's a Miami guy, so I'm sure he'll be elated.
I'm sure. I don't know. I'm sure some of the other teams might have it, but I know the UConn has a couple guys that are fasting as well for Ramadan. So those kids are not only playing in the biggest games of their lives, but they're doing it on a fucking damn it, the first F-bomb for Al, ladies and gentlemen. But they're doing it on an empty stomach, man, empty tank. That's wild to me.
And as much as I'm not a big Kyrie fan, last year when he did that in the playoffs or in the playoff first round or in the way of the playoffs, I got to tip my cap. Like that's so difficult.
Yeah. I can't imagine going through just a normal day of sitting on the couch with an empty stomach.
Yeah, these guys are at an elite level of athletics, and they're doing that.
That's unbelievable, man.
Yeah.
Before we close, Adam, I'll give a quick update on some of the bracket results that I've tabulated. These are just Instagram results, so I don't have the Twitter results. But a couple of close matchups we have in our baseball nickname bracket. We have Pudge and Kung Fu Panda, the 8-9 seeds. That's a tight matchup right now. Pudge is up 6-5. We have, and this was predictable. The 13 seed Shane Victorino, the Flying Hawaiian, has a 9-3 lead over Mr. October.
That's sad. Mr. October's a great nickname.
Yeah. So that's a big upset in the making there. And then we have what was the other bracket I did? The football bracket, right?
Yeah.
Sweetness is running away with it over Deacon. I thought Primetime and He Hate Me. I thought Dion might have been on upset alert, but he's up 9-2.
Primetime.
Ain't nobody got time for the Rock.
Primetime's a great nickname.
Yeah, that's 100%. I agree with you there. So there's just a couple of the results so far. I have to add up the Twitter poll as well, and then we'll post the next two rounds, which are basketball and everything else. I'll try to get those posted maybe tonight, actually, after the pod.
Great. But that's a great segue as we've been talking nicknames and we want to build some momentum for that poll. So we are going to come up with a draft of the greatest Philadelphia sports nicknames in segment 3. And Al, I got great news for you. I pulled the draft order. You got number 1 pick again. Congrats. It's going to be me, it's going to be Al, me, and then Chris this week. So Chris is in the catbird seat at the 3 spot. We will be right back with segment 3. Welcome back to segment 3, where we are going to draft the greatest Philadelphia sports nicknames. We did a draft order, and Al will be 1, I will be 2, Chris will be 3. I do want to thank all those of you who voted for me in the sports movie draft as I defended my crown and remained undefeated.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks, Megan.
I didn't do much preparation this week. I'm trying to let these guys get a win, but we're going to throw it to Al for the first pick in the draft.
Well, listen, this week when I put the results up, I'm going to do what I should have done in the first place. And you had said it, Adam, and I'm just going to not put our names attached to the pick. So these are objective votes on Instagram, since Adam's whole family all of a sudden created accounts last week or 2 weeks ago, or whatever it was.
A lot of Seltzer burner accounts going on.
Yeah, there's seltzers out of the woodwork. So this week, don't worry, Chris, it'll be
Undefeated,
a
never lost.
fair and unbiased vote. All right. Well, once again, Adam had to rig the draft order. He knows how much I hate drafting first in these things, because I think that sometimes you're handcuffed to a nickname. And in this case, I think that nickname is clearly Allen the Answer Iverson. If you think about Philadelphia sports, it's our generation, obviously, I'm speaking about here. There's one player that comes to mind right away that embodied the city of Philadelphia, and it's the Answer. Fantastic sneaker line that went along with it, both the questions and the answers. And still to this day, his entire brand is kind of based around that nickname. So easy pick for me, Allen the Answer Iverson at 1. I don't think you guys are going to take any of his other nicknames, but he had a bunch,
Bubba Chuck.
over the years.
I think when a player's off the board, a player's off the board.
Fine with me.
Yeah.
Because we could have just done the Charles Barkley draft and just
a whole draft on Chuck.
Yeah.
I watched that clip like once a week of us just laughing at it.
What was it? Mighty Gord? What was it?
Boy Gorge.
The incredible bulk and Boy Gorge.
All right. So Al mentioned being handcuffed to a nickname, and I think that's where I'm at now. I don't necessarily love this nickname, but I think a great nickname is when you say the person's first name and the first thing that pops up into your head is the nickname. And as good as the Answer is as a nickname, I don't think it's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think Allen Iverson. However, when I say Julius Erving, the first thing you think of is Dr. J.
First thing I think of is a rat, because
he is a rat.
He hates the Sixer stars. Always.
I can't stand Dr. J. But that made me not want to pick this, but I gotta go with Doc, because it's just, again, Julius Erving is Dr. J. Like, that's the way it is. That name is synonymous with who he is.
Yep.
So Dr. J goes off the board at number 2. Al, are you writing these down? Or you want me to chart them?
I'm writing them down. I can't argue that. And I think that there's a lot of guys on this list that when you say their actual name, you're like it just comes out of your mouth, their nickname.
Yep.
So there's a lot of interesting picks we have here tonight, guys.
All right, is my turn?
Yep, you got 2.
Yep. All right, so this guy was one of my favorite, still is one of my favorite, and majority favorite of the Eagle fan base. And he had a couple different nicknames, but I'm gonna go with Brian Dawkins, aka Weapon X.
Yeah, great
great
pick.
nickname.
I mean, like, how intimidating and ferocious is that nickname for a football player that lays the wood like he does or did?
Ferocious is the perfect word to describe that.
Just coming out, crawling on the ground, and just you know, other teams like, I gotta face this dude. Like, he's willing to do anything if he's going to go out there and come out like that. Like, he's willing to die for this.
Yeah.
So I had Weapon X. I wanted to take it at 2. Because it's, of all the nicknames, it's probably the coolest nickname out of all.
Yeah.
I just don't know how synonymous, like, again, for me, it's like how much of this nickname resonates. And I think you don't necessarily think of that as it is his primary nickname, but it just doesn't flow off the tongue like some of the other ones. But I think it's the coolest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think that I mean, I don't know. I think the Weapon X quite and he even had like a comic line for a little bit towards the end of his career, like that was all focused on what the Weapon X persona. I mean, it's just dope. It's just awesome.
Great nickname. I wish it fell back to me. I was going to take it next.
All right, so I get back to back, right?
Yep.
So the next one is one that I probably can wait on, but I want to take it anyway because actually, no, you know what? I'm going to wait on it. I'm going to take, as a fan of Westerns, Roy Doc Halladay, playing off of the Doc Halladay persona of the Western culture and being the gunslinger, and just the badass dude that people are afraid of. Doc Halladay is just a perfect name for how Roy was in his game, his just how he took on his starts. He just had an aura around him, just like the Doc Holliday in Westerns was. He just came out and just strut out and just did his thing, and more often than not, he was the last man standing. So for me, Doc is that is a true Doc, unlike the previous one that we had mentioned.
Here's my problem with Doc is that it doesn't feel Philly enough. Like he wasn't here.
He already had it before he came here. You're saying,
yeah,
right?
he wasn't here long enough, and he was already Doc prior to coming here. Which I get it. Like it doesn't affect how good the nickname is. Like everybody called him Doc.
I was saying people go more than Roy.
Right, and the story behind it is great and everything. I just don't think his stay in Philly was long enough for us to for that to be one of the best Philadelphia sports nicknames. I'm kind of looking at it from both of those angles. You get what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like that's why Weapon X is such a great one, in my opinion.
Right.
Roy Halladay, one of the fastest drop-offs in Philadelphia sports history. Just went from good to bad really, really fast.
All those guys, Lee, Oswalt, all those guys just fell off cliffs.
I feel like Oswalt was a little more gradual. Like you saw it coming. Doc went from, I was pulling him up, a 2.35 ERA and second in Cy Young in 2011 to a 4.49 in 2012 and then a 6.82 in 2013, and then he was out of the league.
Yeah. And he had to have been
he got hurt. I mean, he had a bad shoulder.
How many innings had he pitched?
Yeah.
He pitched probably like 3 careers worth of the guys that are playing today.
In his first year in Philly, he threw 250 innings.
Yeah, like when he got out there, he was like, he was like the show.
For those 2 years, he was everything he was supposed to be for us.
Is he the last horse, the last true workhorse pitcher?
No, CC outlasted him. CC was a horse.
Was CC still a horse though after Doc? What?
Yeah, CC pitched a lot longer.
All right.
Bartolo Colon.
But we're not gonna. But he literally is a horse.
Bartolo was pitching until he was like 45.
Yeah, we're not gonna see guys like that again though, where they pitch 8, 9 innings consistently every start. Like we're just not gonna see that anymore.
At least not unless
stat nerds won't allow it.
Bartolo Colon. Whenever I think of him, I think if there's a GIF that exists of him where he bends over on the mound, and at the same time he bends over, a screen graphic pops up, and it's the Coors Light Cold Hard Fact. But it shoots out like a cloud out of his ass at the same time that he bends over. And every time I think of him, I just think about that GIF. I'll tweet it out so that people can see what I'm talking about.
He was the man.
All right, so Chris goes Brian Dawkins, Weapon X, and Roy Halladay with Doc. So it comes back to me, and I'm going to go to the gridiron. And again, I think the most important thing with a nickname is it's got to be something that comes to your mind right away. And for the late 2000s and early 2010s, LaShawn McCoy was the Eagles' workhorse, but he didn't go by LaShawn McCoy. He went by Shady. And it was just a tremendous nickname. Again, one of those ones where you're like, yeah, Shady McCoy. And sometimes you have to think about what his first name actually was if you're not a diehard Eagles fan. So I'm going with Shady for LaShawn McCoy as my second round pick.
That actually just made me think about another one, but I'm not going to go with it for my official list. But we'll talk about it after the draft's over. But that's a good one. That's a good pick.
Yeah, like if you're going to take Shake Milton.
Yeah,
you can't take Shake Milton.
Malik Benjamin Milton.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I was happy, Adam, to hear you say gridiron because the 2 I have coming up here are not football players. But boy, oh boy, man, I'm about to. This is going to be it. You might as well take all your fun ones after this, guys. I'm locking it up. Locking it up after 3 rounds. This draft is over. My second pick is going to be none other than the man, the myth, the legend, the 253 career batting average of Pat the Bat Burrell.
No.
Pat,
come on, man.
What do you mean? Come on! What? It's an iconic nickname.
It is, but it's like generic, but it's
so generic.
But it's a double entendre. It's for his actual lumber, and it's
I know. I got it. Yeah.
So come on, dude. There's never been a more fitting nickname for he stinks. He shouldn't have that nickname.
He should have came out to the
Burrow was underrated.
He was under. Yeah, listen. probably when you look back at it, right? One of the guys who was like just the least appreciated of all time, and somehow just rolled with the damn punches and rolled with it all the way to a damn ring. And he earned the love and respect of the entire city along the way.
So I remember I don't remember who it was with. I went to Shea Stadium, and that was back when Burrow used to own Billy Wagner.
Yep.
And we went, and before the game started, went early, went down to the field level, and we're watching them take batting practice and stuff like that. And Pat Burrow was out with, oh man, I want to say maybe like Abraham Nunez or someone like that. And he farted on the field. And one of them was like, yo, man, like we got people out here already. He's like, I don't care. Like typical Pat Burrow fashion. Like, what are you gonna do? But he also was the only one, if I'm not mistaken, he got 2 rings, didn't he? Was he on the Giants when they won?
I'm looking at his thing now.
I don't know.
In 2011,
Was he?
He played 92 games for them. I don't know if that was the year they won, right? 11. They won in
10 or 11, one of those.
He was there in 10 as well. So
yeah, I remember him because I remember him going there, and I was pretty certain he got a ring with them.
Yeah. So just some quick Burrow numbers. OPS is a stat that's out there, on base plus slugging. Generally, if you're 800 or higher, it's a pretty decent year. Pat Burrow for the Phillies, 920, 713, 821, 892, 890, 902, 875. Those were his numbers as a Philly.
And at one point, he was like 7 for 7 with like 5 home runs off Billy Wagner.
Yeah, dude, he owned Wagner
In the very beginning.
Only had 1 hit in the 2008 World Series, but it was that double
double
should have been inside the park homer. Like
it was barely a double.
Well, he had a lot of bat that he was running around with. So
that's exactly right. We could share some tales of that bat, because I know we've all probably heard stories about that bat.
Guy did as much damage in Old City as he did in Citizens Bank Park.
And listen, man, did you see him back in the World Series? That he still got it.
Yeah, this past World Series.
Yeah.
No, I didn't see it. No, I didn't see it.
Handsome man, handsome gentleman. He became
very debonair. It's your vocab word of the night.
The only time Pat the Bat has ever been called debonair in his life. Right here in the 3K pod, ladies and gentlemen. All right. My next pick to start round 3 is on the hardwood as well. But he played well before Allen Iverson did.
Oh no.
We talk a lot about people who are Philly killers who just tend to destroy us. You know, we've said guys like Jeff Conine before. This was the opposite. This was the guy who killed our rival, the Boston Celtics. And I'm talking about Andrew Toney, aka the Boston Strangler.
Al, I thought it was gonna be there in the third
me
round.
too.
That's why I didn't take it.
Me too.
This honestly might have been my number 1 pick. Like if I was just picking subjectively,
this is all time nickname.
Dude, this is an absolutely phenomenal nickname. It is vicious as hell.
Yeah.
And it's named after something that actually happened. Dude,
and it was true.
People. Yeah, and they didn't care.
But he really did kill the Celtics.
He killed them, dude. He in 82, I looked it up, in the 82 Eastern Conference Finals, he averaged 26.4. He scored 34 in game 7. That season, he only averaged 16 points.
He was the Boston Scott at one point. I mean, he's better than Boston Scott, but I mean, like in a similar kind of way, a guy we don't think about. We don't think of, like, we always see like Moses and Doc and those kind of guys, but Andrew Toney was nice.
100%, dude. He played alongside some of the all-time greats for the Sixers. So we forget. I mean, the casual fan will forget his name because he played alongside Dr. J and Moses Malone and Bobby Jones. But I mean, what a run for him those couple of seasons, dude. Just to give it to Boston like that,
yeah,
and to be dubbed that nickname by the Boston sports writers. It wasn't even the Philly guys that called him that.
Yeah,
it's a fabulous pick. It's a fabulous nickname.
I'm mad. I thought it was going to be there.
Yeah,
got you guys in a pretzel now. Where are you going to go now? You're in that figure 4 in the middle of the ring.
Yeah.
But
so
we didn't clarify the rules in the beginning. It doesn't necessarily have to be just a player. It could be a team or something of that nature. So I'm going to stay in the old days. I'm going to go outside the box for us, boys.
Don't pick my.
You got to go to the 1970s. You got to go to the Philadelphia Flyers.
No, okay.
Broad Street Bullies is just a fantastic nickname for a team, and it resembled exactly what they were. You came into town and you got beat up, whether it was Dave Schultz, Bobby Clark, all those guys. You came into Philadelphia and you got beat up on Broad Street. Broad Street Bullies is such a good name to represent a team that, again, it just fits so well, and everybody knows exactly who you're talking about when you say Broad Street Bullies.
Can I say, though, that nickname is a gift and a curse for that franchise, because they've tried to replicate and emulate that style for the last 50 years, and it has not worked for them.
No, hockey's gone so far away from that.
Right. But that's why it's so great, is like it did work for that period of time, and they're trying so hard to bring it back. Like
and people still use it for other things.
It'd be so marketable if they could do it.
Yeah.
No, that's a fan. So I wanted to take it, but I took so much shit from people for taking my wedding day as the best day.
See that?
I was thinking about that draft, and we should have avoided those picks.
We should have. I agree in retrospect. But right before we went on, we were like, oh, we can do it.
Yeah, we screwed it up because it needed to be. It needed to be days that happen every year.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. A big shout out to Casey. Our anniversary was yesterday. 8 years.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. Not in my top 5. My top 5. It was business as usual in the Ryan household.
All right, so it goes back to Chris for 2.
Man, I'm really mad about that Andrew Toney.
Was that the one that you had said like you were going to take, and then you took Doc?
Yeah. So Doc got the pick. That might have been the Zaire Smith. So this nickname, I think I'm just gonna go for fun at this point because I had a couple funny ones. This was a well-known one, but I think it's funny at the same time. The play off of the 1950 Whiz Kids, the Phillies in 1983 went old school and signed a bunch and traded for a bunch of veterans to win their second ring in 3 years or 4 years, I should say. And as a result, they had Joe Morgan, they had Pete Rose, they had all these other guys that were old veterans. They called themselves the Wheeze Kids. And I've always thought that name was just hilarious. Just imagining like a bunch of old baseball dudes coming out with like cigarettes in their mouth, one in their mouth, one on their ears, coming out like getting exhausted, running out doubles. But I mean, they went to the World Series, but just having a team name called the Wheeze Kids, and then they were good. So like other teams were like, "Hey, yo, the Wheeze Kids got us, dog." Like the OGs, they got us. Like I think that's an awesome, funny nickname, and especially because it was a playoff of the Whiz Kids, which was also a great Philadelphia Phillies team back in 30 years prior to that. So I thought that was kind of cool and creative, and still just funny as hell to me. I think that's just a funny nickname. So I'll take the Wheeze Kids.
That's a good pick. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I
really?
didn't know that story either.
I'd never heard that.
Yeah. The Wheeze Kids. So the next one is, man. I'm gonna go back to the Eagles. One of the guys I used to always want to play like when I would lay the wood at the hill. Get the axe going from my man Trot. The Axe Man, Jeremiah Trotter.
Ludus is gonna love that pick.
Oh yeah, he's like, oh yeah, hell yeah. Axe Man's awesome. This guy, first of all,
Ludus in your basement?
Huh?
Ludus in your basement? Was that him?
He's behind the screen like. Trotter looked like the dude that would be. I mean, he grew up in, I believe, in Texas, in like the middle of nowhere, Texas, chopping wood with his pop. And that's exactly like the kind of guy that he always, I mean, he's a big, brawn, strong, wide dude that would chop the wood. And then he played, and that's how he played. He would just lay you out, chop you down. And then when he did it, he lets you know by chopping with the axe chop. So the Axe Man, I think that was one of the classic ones for me that I always remember.
Where did Trot go between the Eagles teams? Was it Washington?
Washington, yeah. And then he came back.
Yeah.
And he was terrible there. He
Yeah, he was.
sabotaged them
Yeah,
for
it
a
was
year.
awful. The pride of Stephen F. Austin.
That's a
Yeah.
good pick. All right, so back to me for a pick. I'm stuck. I have 3 names on my list. 2 are actually from the same team, and I'm not really sure where I want to go at this point. I guess I'm going to skip the 2 guys on the same team and hope one of them bounces back to me because I don't think Al's going to take 2. So I'm going to go. I mean, how many Super Bowls do the Eagles have? Just one. And it was
Now.
led by an unlikely story of a quarterback that was a backup, and it was Big Dick Nick.
See that?
Now listen,
It's an unofficial nickname, though.
pretty
That was
official.
an unofficial nickname.
No, that's as Philly as it gets, Chris.
Yeah. Now I will tell you this:
I ain't calling no grown ass man Big Dick Nick. Dude, I ain't
we
doing
do
it.
have an
You can
inside.
put it in there if you want.
We do have an inside source within the Eagles locker room
Oh,
confirmed
wait a minute.
that nickname was given to him before the Super Bowl.
All right,
That is a valid nickname for a 6'6" quarterback.
Are we? So is that your? I want to go to the next pick. I'm uncomfortable.
Big Dick Nick is off the board.
Put the
Round
the Val
4.
Venus entrance music we need in the background of this pick.
Round 4, pick 2, Big Dick Nick.
I thought I had it wrapped up. That might have gave you a little push there.
Ladies love it. The ladies love it.
Might give you a little push. Oh man, where do I go now? Because I had a couple funny ones that I thought about.
Was that on your board, Al?
No.
I was gonna say I didn't have it on my board.
It's not on my board.
Hey, credit to him. You know what I mean? I don't know.
So I have to assume. Oh, well, I have the last 2 here. These are my last 2 picks. Okay. All right. A little insight here, guys. I have like 20 names on my list.
I only have a couple left.
All right. I'm gonna go with what my heart's telling me to go with, and I'm gonna choose Mitch the Wild Thing Williams. I think it's another name that is synonymous with the person. You can't think about Mitch Williams without thinking about, unfortunately, probably 2 things. His nickname, the Wild Thing, and his unfortunate pitch to Joe Carter in Game 7 of the World Series. So, yeah, if you ask me for my money, I have a lot of baseball nicknames here, but the Wild Thing is up there.
Plus, it was right around the time of Major League, and it just fit the Charlie Sheen mold of you just didn't know what you were going to get when that guy came in the game. They always say walk the bases loaded and strike out the side.
And then he would always just heave himself off the mound every pitch he had.
Yeah.
Pitching mechanics were not in Mitch's
awful.
I'm not gonna lie. As a kid, because what were we, 7, 8?
Yeah, 7 or 8.
I was very confused by it. Like I was like, "Yo, was he in the movie? Is this the movie? What am I watching? What am I watching right now?" I was very confused.
You would think a dude that threw like that was throwing like 103 with those mechanics.
What do you think you threw? Like 95?
92.
I would say he probably threw like 94 in hindsight. But he wouldn't even be able to make it. And you couldn't get a guy with those kind of mechanics on a mound nowadays. They wouldn't allow it.
Different.
Imagine him with the pitch clock.
What do they call those kind of guys? Effectively wild.
Yeah.
The batter's box, not knowing where the ball's going.
Was Dontrell Willis the last effectively wild pitcher?
Yeah, that's another great nickname, the D-Train. Yeah,
D-Train.
He was on the Phillies at one point.
The Phillies. Yeah, he was in the minor leagues, and then I think he got like a spring training invite.
I forgot about that.
I think he pitched for a little bit in one year, didn't he? When 2013 or something.
He might have pitched.
That was the dark era for sure.
Yeah, that was when we had what was the dude we got from Seattle that year and was awful?
Michael Saunders.
Yeah, he was awful, and that was a big get because I think he went to the All-Star game the year before that.
Dontrell Willis did not pitch any innings for the Philadelphia Phillies in the regular season.
No, I thought okay.
No, but it was.
You guys ever have that too, by the way, where you think about a guy from 10, 15 years ago, and for some reason there's some part of you that's he was on the Phillies at one point or a Philadelphia team, and you're like, no, it wasn't.
Dude, that era of Phillies baseball was. There's a lot of guys that were on that team that were
back in the 90s. Was Kent Bottenfield ever on the Phillies?
Yes.
He was on the okay.
Yes.
Like he's one of those guys. Like some of those guys like that in that time frame. I'm like, did I see him in the Phillies uniform, or am I just dreaming stuff?
What are you dreaming about?
Aaron Harang.
Ken Bottenfield, he was good for a minute.
Jesus.
Ken
Look, dude,
Bottenfield.
in the mid '90s, bro, we had nothing on the Phillies. We had anything we could get, we would grab a hold of.
What was his nickname?
In the year 2000, Kent Bottenfield started 8 games for the Phillies. That was it.
That was all he. See what I'm saying? I feel like he had more than that.
Me too. But
Wow. Look at
What
this
was his
guy.
ERA?
Look at this guy.
4 or 5.
You don't remember him, Al? Ken Bottenfield? I believe
No,
he came
but-
from the Cardinals, didn't he, Seltzer?
Yes. Well, that was when and I don't know if that's where he came from, but that's where he pitched the majority of his career. He came from the Angels, but
He is
pitched,
a house. This
Yeah,
dude,
he was a big
this
dude.
dude
he
is
was
a
he was an
house.
all-star in '99 for the Cardinals.
Yes. So he was all
I
right.
can't believe we're on the Kent Bottenfield train right now.
Hey, man.
He released 2 Christian music albums after he retired.
I was about to say, I wonder what he's doing now.
There you go. All right.
A lot of music guys on the Phillies from what's his name is a musician now? Mike not Mike.
Brett Myers.
Brett Myers. Yeah.
No spoilers for next week. Episode 39.
Oh yeah, right. Is it my turn?
No, I got my last pick.
Oh, go, okay.
I got the pick. I got 2 names I think would ice it for me, but I'm gonna go and I'm gonna leave the door creaked open for you guys once again. So Megan, if you're listening, fire up the Instagram account. Get ready to click on the story. I'm gonna go with an Eagle, and I'm gonna go with one of my favorite Eagles of all time. I'm gonna go with none other than Fred X Mitchell. I'm taking Fred X for my last pick because I love my hands. And in a time when I wasn't an Eagles fan, he gave me a reason to root for that team. So I'm taking Fred X with my last pick.
That's right up there with changes. That's a direct ruiner.
Fred X is cool because the comparison or the link to FedEx always delivering. Right. I like it.
Dude, that's a great nickname.
Yeah,
that's a great nickname.
No, I like that pick. I want to thank my hands for being so great.
Dude, unbelievable.
Who says that at a press conference?
Unbelievable.
He was a
He
character.
still shows up.
And
He's at Sixers games all the time.
That's what I was just gonna say. He's still like hanging around.
Yeah, he's always at Sixers games.
Yeah.
And what was he? Wasn't he? He's Chase Utley's boy.
Yeah, he apparently had a lot of connections because he went to UCLA and played out.
Yeah, they were like best friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. He introduced Chase and Jennifer Utley to each other.
He also randomly knew like Elizabeth Hurley and somebody else that was like a random celebrity that he was like actually like that he knew or whatever that he said was like friends with. But
that's probably that LA connection.
Yeah,
absolutely. Listen, this is the only pod where you're going to get some Kent Bottenfield information along with Freddie Mitchell information back to back.
Yeah, man.
That's my clip that I got to put on Instagram right there.
That's facts.
For
my last pick,
conversation.
I mentioned that I had 2 guys that were on the same team, and Al took one of them. So I'm going to go with the other one. So I'm glad you narrowed it down for me. And I mentioned earlier that I think that nicknames should be synonymous with the player and come up pretty easily. But this one may not be the case, but I think it's just a really cool nickname similar to Weapon X. And Lenny Dykstra used to go by Nails. And it's a perfect nickname for his personality because he was the dude who was grimy. He bled out these at-bats. He was tough as nails. He would run into walls for you. He was the leader of that 93 team. I just think it's just a great, great nickname. I
actually had him on my chart for the nickname Dude.
I was debating Dude Nails. But I like Nails.
But Nails is a good one too, though.
Yeah. I have both nicknames, which is why I didn't want to pick him.
Yeah.
You got 2.
I was between him and Mitch, obviously, and I'm glad you narrowed it down for me.
Well, while we're on the subject of the Phillies, I will tell you a guy I'm not picking, and that would be Richie Ashburn for his Whitey nickname, which I can't believe he had that nickname for so long, and people still call him that. I'm not calling another dude Whitey. I'm not doing it.
Are you going to call him Whitey?
You ain't catching me slipping. I'm not doing
it. What are you going to do first? Call him Whitey or call him Nick Foles, Big Dick Nick?
I guess I got to go with BDN, I guess.
Yeah.
So I remember on the Fresh Prince, there's one episode where Uncle Phil had one of his judge friends over, and he told Will, call me Whitey. And then Will said, nah, I'm gonna call you that, then you'll call me the other thing, and then we go have a big fight.
Is that the one where he starts hawking the cars for the guy? He says he's gonna drop.
It was it was I know that episode too, but no,
they play the music and they're dancing around the living room. I think they play I know you wanna leave me.
Oh yeah. That show's awesome, man. Have you seen the new one? The drama one?
No, I don't have Peacock.
I haven't watched I haven't watched it though. I'm okay with living in the 90s still.
I was real hyped for it when they announced it, and then as time passed, I was like, this doesn't look that great.
Me too. Same with Saved by the Bell. I was all hyped for that, and then it came out. I was like, I'm not. This is past me. Like this is for another demographic at this point. So my last one, I am going to. We talked about the Flyers a little bit earlier with the Broad Street Bullies. Growing up in the 90s, we remember Eric Lindros, John LeClaire, Mikhail Remberg, the Legion of Doom.
Yeah.
Those guys were, and they got after. They were really, like, we could argue that 97 Flyers team especially was awesome. They were a really good team. That line was like Leclerc and Lindros were two of the most formidable guys in that time frame in hockey. They were kind of like, to me, like the Malkin and Crosby. Or the Sakic and Forsberg. They were right there with a lot of those great combos. Just couldn't get it done. But Legion of Doom was like I don't know, I could be wrong, but I feel like that put those names like really on the map. Like I feel like they had them before, but it wasn't like the same as, maybe just because I was a Flyers fan and I just loved it more than other teams' names to their lines. I don't know. But
I was just gonna say that, Chris. I don't know if it's because
Let me ask you this.
Great.
Because I had it on my list, and for the same reasons you did, because what it represented was how good those three guys were together and how dominant they were. But don't you think the nickname itself is a little corny?
No. I mean, it now it would be, but in 1995 or when they made it, that was still very much a cool nickname. I mean, the 90s, let's be honest, the 90s were a cheesy decade.
Yeah, no.
I mean, so it was cheese, but it fit at the time. Now, if the three of us had a Legion of Doom line, they'd be like, yeah, what is that even? What does that even mean?
For Pod 88, we'll rebrand it for the week.
I love that. I love that.
OD Pod.
All right, so Al, do you want to run down the picks for each person? Then we could rattle off some extra nicknames we had.
Here we go. All right, I had the first pick. My 5 are Allen Iverson, the Answer, Pat Burrell, Pat the Bat, Andrew Toney, the Boston Strangler, Mitch Williams, Wild Thing, and Freddie Mitchell, Fred X. Adam, I really don't want to say you're one again. We have Dr. J, Julius Erving. We have LaShawn McCoy, Shady. We have the 70s Flyers, the Broad Street Bullies. We have Nick Foles, Big
Nick Foles, and then that's it.
We have Lenny Dykstra, Nails. And then Chris, we have Brian Dawkins, Weapon X. We have Roy Halladay, Doc. We have the 80s Phillies, the Wheeze Kids. We have Jeremiah Trotter, the Axeman. And then we have the 90s Flyers, the Legion of Doom. And I have
Chris, I'll tell you what.
2 names left.
I don't know if you're going to win, but this was one of your better efforts this week.
Well, I appreciate it. I think that we all believe we've all won previous drafts, but I appreciate your honesty with this one.
I don't love the Axeman selection because I don't feel like people ever really went around and were like, "Oh, the Axeman" when they talked about Trotter.
Not as much as some other guys that we had, but it was out there. And that's what he would do. He would do the axe every game.
Yeah, but no one did it, and then yelled the Axeman.
Like everybody's like, wait for it. Axeman.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. I guess I wasn't playing on the hill every day.
Hey, listen, days, if they did it like that, I probably wouldn't have even put it on here if that was the case. If it played out like that, I would have been like, nah, I'm not putting it on here. Maybe it's a good thing that it was kind of discreet.
Couple other ones, Al. I know you have a long list. I only put a few together today, so let me just run through the mine that were on here. We talked before the process. Nobody drafted it. Chris, you thought it was gonna be a top 2 pick.
The only reason I didn't do it is because we talked about it before the thing, so I felt like it was a ripoff for the three of us to still put if I still put it on there. So
the big piece. Nobody went big.
I never liked that nickname.
I wasn't a huge fan either, so I
It's
didn't.
so forced.
Chooch.
Yeah, Chooch
Nobody
is
went Chooch.
Chooch was what I would have taken over Fred X.
And then I think that's all. Oh, and the Minister of Defense.
Yeah.
Reggie
So
White.
that yeah. Other than Iverson, I tried to stay away from the ones that were in our
bracket.
Yeah.
That's a good one, Celtics. I forgot about that. Reggie White.
Yeah, so those were the ones that I had extra.
Did you have any extra ones, Al? Do you want to talk about?
I have a lot. Do you want to go? Do you have a lot? I have a lot.
No, I just had a couple. Obviously J-Roll.
Yeah.
I want to count that. Dutch Dalton, Darren Dalton. That was also always a cool.
He was my
name.
favorite on the 93 Phillies.
I didn't understand what is Dutch is. What does that represent?
I don't know if it was like if he smoked Dutches or
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm not really sure. I don't. Unfortunately, I don't really know the story behind it, but I just know we always called him Dutch, so I just went along with it. But also, I can't be a Temple alum and not say a guy that you probably never heard of, but he was a NBA player for a hot minute way back in the day, in like the 50s or 60s. Bill Milkfee, who was called the Owl without a vowel because he had no vowel in his last name. It was MLKVY.
That had to be. Like, that has to be a typo in his birth certificate.
No, he was like Polish or something. That was how he spelled it.
That's phenomenal nickname.
Yeah,
you should have picked that, dude. That's
I thought about it.
Yeah, that would have sealed it instead of the Wheeze Kids, probably, or the Axeman.
Yeah.
I like the Wheeze Kids. I thought that was funny.
That's really good.
Darren Dalton, the origin of the Dutch nickname is when he got old enough to play with the neighborhood kids, they played double Dutch. So they jumped rope and they did double Dutch. And since his initials were DD and the game's initials were DD, they started calling him Double Dutch. And then it just got
I like that.
How about that?
That's a great nickname. That's a great origin story for a nickname.
It actually sounds like he was from the hood or something like that.
Yeah.
That kind of story. I'm surprised. Let me find out he had some street cred.
I think it said he was from Arkansas.
Yeah, so there that goes.
Arkansas City, Kansas.
Oh, it's all confusing.
Yeah, it's weird. All right. So we didn't say the fly in Hawaii, and it's on the list. Charles Barkley. I mean, we talked about him off recording, but like he has so many, and I feel like his stay in Philly again was so short. He wasn't called those things in Philly.
I would say it was short. He was here for 8 years.
Well, I mean, I just mean, yeah, you're right about that. He wasn't. I don't remember being called those things. Obviously, we were so young.
Well, plus we talked about him so much previous shows that I didn't want to bring it back up.
Yeah,
it's like a show in itself. His nicknames.
Right. Smoking Joe Frazier. That's a classic.
That's a great one.
That's a classic.
Yeah.
Lights Out Lidge, but it's another one where again the stay wasn't that long, but that year, man, he was lights out. Chocolate Thunder. Yeah. We didn't say. Speedy Claxton, which I have a Speedy Claxton jersey up in my room. I'll wear it next time, maybe.
What's his first name?
Craig.
Yeah, correct.
Where do you go to school?
Craig
Hofstra. Jay Wright.
Yep.
Yeah. Is he coaching there now?
Somebody said that. Somebody said he was coaching somewhere.
Somewhere, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of those guys go back to the alma mater.
He's coaching. I don't know what this says. He joined in 2013. He joined the staff.
Gotcha.
He's an assistant. All right. Flash Gordon, Tom Flash Gordon.
Oh, God. You're reaching, dude.
Hollywood Hamels.
Yeah.
Greg Vukovic.
Vuki.
Sarge.
That's a good one.
Greg the Bull. Lazinski.
What about the Secretary of Defense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Maddox, yeah.
Uncle Charlie.
The last two I have, the last one really is Sauce Castillo, Nick Stauskas.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And then the worst nickname of all time, the one I hate more than any other one ever in the history of everything, is the stupid Feds nickname for that one Sixers team.
Oh my God, I forgot. I got a T-shirt of that.
I hated that nickname.
Yeah, I got a
T-shirt the initials FEDS, so let's just call them Feds. It doesn't make any sense. No
I got
sense.
a T-shirt from that one time we were drunk at one of the games a couple of years back, and they were not giving them out, but they were selling them out front.
Paid for one?
Like $10, yeah. Again, I was what do you call it? Inebriated.
Yeah.
Very easy trivia question. Why was Nick Scalzis nicknamed Sauce Castillo?
I actually don't know. I forget.
It was like the what was it like? Was it a typo or the guy said it the wrong way? It was one of
No,
the
it was closed captioning on a TV.
closed
And
caption.
the announcer said Nick Stauskas and it translated Sauce Castillo for some
Yeah,
reason.
that's awesome.
It just stuck.
Also, two we didn't mention was because I love smoking Joe Frazier's nickname so much. It made me think about the executioner Bernard Hopkins.
Yeah.
Good one. That's a really good one.
And what was the other one? There was one I was thinking of aside from that just now. Oh, shoot, I can't think of it. I forgot it. But yeah, but the executioner's an awesome one.
Yeah.
That is good.
And then come out with the whole executioner outfit.
Yeah, dude, with the hood down and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, he was the man.
The hands
Moral
up.
of the story, go to our Instagram poll, go to our Twitter page, vote in the polls. Let us know what the greatest sports nickname of all time is. We will look to get the polls from last night are closed, but we will look to get the basketball and the random sports ones up in the next day or so. So keep an eye out for that. Anything else before we wrap tonight, boys?
I actually think the winner of that pool of our greatest nickname, I think it might come from the everything else bracket.
Dude, I think the Intimidator is such a good nickname.
That's a strong 2 seed.
It's a strong name.
Very, very strong.
Earnhardt.
Yeah. Mass crack.
Do we have Gretzky on there?
Yeah, he's number one
my
seed.
pick. That's
He's
my
number
pick.
one.
I think it's going to win it all. That's a
It's a
great
great-
nickname, man.
Great nickname.
Yeah. And
To
he
be
was
called that? That's insane to be called that.
Yeah, he was, and he backed it up.
It
He's the
fit.
best. He's one of the best. I always say him, Michael Phelps, and Serena Williams, for my money, are the best athletes of all time.
You think The Rock called him and was like, "Yo, do you mind if I use this?"
No.
I don't know. I could see him doing it, but I could see him also not doing it. So I don't know.
It is a blatant ripoff. It's not like he had to have known, right? I mean, it's
But like when The Rock debuts that, I don't know if The Rock thinks it's going to take off to the point where he has to ask Wayne Gretzky.
But once it did, they still got to get it.
What are you going to do? Go back in time and
Well,
say
we don't know if Gretzky got that trademark at that
Yeah,
time.
I don't.
He may not have had a trademark by that point. I don't know.
all right, listen. Go Huskies.
Go Phils.
Anybody want to take a shot on Isaiah Joe points tonight? Game's in over. They just lost, but anybody want to do a guess on how many points he had tonight?
Play 5 threes, 15.
I would say 30 points on 8 for 12 from 3-point.
Why is that funny, Al?
Oh no.
33, 33 points tonight for Isaiah Joe on 11 of 18 shooting, 6 of 11 from 3.
6 for 11. You could use them.
Yeah, good enough. Instead, we got to save a roster spot for Dwayne. But we will catch you all next week. Hit the Twitter and Instagram polls, and we're going to drop that beat.